financial stability of every person in every community. Will you?
HCAM programming is supported by viewers like you. Thank you.
And by Angels Garden Center, growing in Hopkinton since 1957.
And by Hopkinton Drug, an integrative pharmacy and community partner since 1954, providing customized compounded medication in their on-site lab, nutritional supplements, and a knowledgeable staff. Hopkinton Drug, believing food, exercise, and community, along with an integrative approach to medicine, can help you achieve your wellness goals.
You're watching HCAM TV, and for more Hopkinton, visit HCAM Ed.
If we go quickly and efficiently through this one, our next meeting should not be as long.
Through the chair, you're live on HCAM TV.
All right, thanks, Bob. Just do a quick count here. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got a majority. So, good evening, everyone. This is Gary Trendle, Chair of the Hopkinton Planning Board, and I hereby call our March 20th, 2023 meeting to order. This open meeting of the Hopkinton Planning Board is being conducted remotely, consistent with the previously signed an act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. This act includes an extension of the remote meeting provisions of Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 executive order suspending certain provisions of this open meeting law. The new law has two major parts. First, the new law allows public bodies to continue providing live, adequate alternative means of public access to the deliberations of the public body instead of holding meetings in a public space that is open and physically accessible to the public. Second, the new law authorizes all members of the public body to continue participating in meetings remotely. For this meeting, the Planning Board is convening by video conference via Zoom app as posted on the town's web meeting calendar and the board's agenda identifying how the public may join. Additionally, the meeting is being broadcast by HCAM through multiple channels. Thank you, HCAM. Please note this meeting is being recorded. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website via the web meeting calendar unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. With regards to public comment, not every agenda item will feature public comment, but for those that do, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment. Please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom. Always begin with your name and address, and note that you will be afforded 3 minutes for your questions and comments. We will hold firm to that tonight, given that we have an incredibly full agenda. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call. Just one quick update on the meeting provisions, on the remote meeting provision for the planning board. At this point in time, that expires at the end of the month. So we will need to plan for our next meeting to be in person. But I think you all know, I think in general, we're aligned that the remote meeting works well, and we'll just see what the state decides to do. So members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative that you're here. Mary?
Yes.
Rob? Don't see Rob yet. Fran?
Fran Dion, present.
Jane?
Jane Moran, present.
Ron?
Ron Prefer, present.
Elise? I don't see Elise. Paul? No Paul either. Matthew?
Matthew Franca, present.
All right, staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mr. Gelsich?
John Gelsich, present.
Miss Pemberton?
Stephanie Pemberton, present.
And Mr. Paradis?
Phil Paradis and Beta, present.
Thank you, Phil. All right, so let me just quickly review our agenda. We do have a couple of requests to continue. We're going to start out with a couple of administrative items relating to Turkey Ridge and Boxville Street acceptance. We're going to continue our public hearings for the proposed zoning bylaw amendments that came to us via Zach. We have discussion on 2 town meeting articles that came to us via citizens petition. The continued public hearing for 0 Lumber Street earth removal permit application that has been requested that we continue. So we will vote on that in a little bit to continue. We anticipate discussion on the trails, as well as the amended special permit for Wilson Street. We will also be discussing 86 Elm Street. 28 Lumber Street has also requested continuation. And then we have a new public hearing, 17 Pratt Way, from Hopkinton Parks and Rec, for pickleball/tennis facility. So that is a lot for us. I'm gonna do my best to stay on time. Again, we'll try to keep our comments and process as efficient as possible. There are some formalities that we have to do. You guys know it's my favorite part, if we get to that point in any of the hearings. So let's go ahead and start with Turkey Ridge. And John, do you want to give us some background on why this is before us?
Sure. So I'm going to pull up a plan real quick, if I can find it.
And while you're pulling that up, I just, from a scheduling perspective, we are going to try to keep this pretty quick, 10 minutes of total time. I don't expect any decisions here, but we want to get a few things in front of the board, and then we'll likely continue our discussion at a future meeting.
So while I pull this up, the issue is the subdivision is currently under construction, and there has been some erosion and sedimentation issues that Concom has mostly been dealing with, but given all of that, there has been some open space encroachments that are of a concern for the planning board. So I'm going to share my screen now. So this is the plan for Turkey Ridge. And this particularly is the area. Can everyone see that? This particularly is the area of concern. There is some work that has been done over here. Can you see my cursor?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so there's been some work that has been done over here, and this is the open space line. This is a retaining wall right here, which serves as the edge of the open space. So there's some work that's been done over here, and then there's been some work that's been done on this slope over here, including some damage to trees. And then this is where all the stormwater has been catching. This red line is the limit of work. This orange line is the open space line. But there has been some stormwater flow that has gone past the erosion control barriers into the open space and effectively down to the river. So this just gives you kind of an overview. And I can pull this up later, but I'm going to just pull up some photos so you can see what has transpired on the site. Sorry, I'm adding people to the meeting and trying to do this all at once, so I apologize if I'm seeming disconnected from everything. Bigger. There we go. All right. So these photos are in no particular order, but it just shows some impacts to the open space. So this tree right here is in the open space. It serves almost as the edge, the line of the open space in a certain way. And all these were taken obviously a couple weeks back when the snow was on the ground. We have some that show no snow, so that'll be a little bit better to see. But I just want to give you all of this up front. So these are areas that are within the open space that you can see some stones piled up, some tree damage, some dirt piled up. This is taken near the edge of the retaining wall, off of the road, off of the extension of Lincoln Street. So you're seeing some of the areas that are piled up, and you can see it's been dug out. So this stone wall or the brick wall that you can see under near this person's foot is effectively the edge of the open space. So anything to the left of this stone wall is in the open space. You can see some boulders have been pushed in the open space. Obviously, that's not its natural resting place. That's been moved. This is the back slope of that retaining wall area. Some of the stones may have been there in the past. You can see some moss on them when you go over there, but there is a lot of stone and dirt that has been piled up. And this is just a look into the open space. No particular items to look at here. These photos were taken during the snow event, the snow rain event last week by COMCOM, the COMCOM agent and the assistant. So this is all in the open space, water rushing off the site down to the river. Apologies for the poor quality in the fuzzy photos. This is water that's in the open space. You can see it's ponding. It's pretty turbid water. All of this is within the open space or past the open space. And that's the erosion control barrier that failed. And then these photos were taken last week. So that tree that we saw in the first photo, that was the edge of the open space, is the one that's right in the center of the picture. If you can see where the berm in the back goes up, there's a little manhole there. That is the edge of the open space. Everything to the right. Can you see my cursor at all?
Yes.
Okay, so the manhole is right around here. So basically all of this is open space. And then all of this is open space. And so this is that retaining wall, as you saw in the pictures with the snow. This was all dug out. It was a much more of a dip, but now they've made somewhat of a plateau. They've filled it in with soil. They put some gravel here. And all of this is open space. So this post right here, going over and then bending towards here, is the open space line. So all of this is open space that's been disturbed. That's more photos of what's been done on the slope. Stones piled up. And then this is a different angle. This is the back part of the slope. And then more of the same, obviously, has been graded. And then these are those same stones that I took pictures of before that were in the snow. And then some stones piled up on the trees. This is a different angle. So this is the back of the slope. The retaining wall is up here. And the damaged tree that serves as the edge of the open space is right here. So if you picture a line going this way, all of this is open space. And then some soil piled up on the trees, on the slope. And
So,
that's it.
John, thank you for the pictures. I think this definitely helps us out and probably saves us a site walk. Do you want to just talk really quickly to timing considerations of this? And
Sure. So the open space acceptance is on town meeting agenda. So I think it would be hard for the planning board to justify accepting the open space in the current condition that it's in right now. So I think what needs to be done is that the board needs to, so the applicant has submitted a corrective action plan today. I think the board needs to take a look at that plan, see if it's sufficient, if there's anything that needs to change, if anything needs to be added. We've got an email from the conservation agent in the file that puts some recommendations is for landscaping, and I haven't had a chance to really look at the plan, so I don't know if those comments have been included. But the recommendation is for plantings, not just seeding, but plantings within that open space, because the concern is there is a patch of Japanese knotweed nearby, and if you seed the soil, that might give a chance for the knotweed to take over before any plantings can grow. So by planting actual saplings and seedlings and stuff like that will give a better chance for that growth to succeed rather than the knotweed. So that's one of the biggest concerns. And I think if the board has a plan in place that is sufficient for their comfort level to say, yes, town meeting, we can accept this open space, then you can move forward as was. You can say that it's been restored. It was, disturbed, and now it's been restored. But I think all of that should take place before town meeting so that you can say that with a straight face, and we're not conditioning any, you can't even condition town meeting approval, but we're not effectively conditioning any acceptance of the open space based on work that still needs to be done. I think that work needs to be done prior to May 1st.
All right. Thanks, John. I'm going to pass it over to Shane as a representative of the applicant. And Shane, I have not had a chance to review the corrective action plan that you sent over a couple hours ago. But maybe what I'd like to do is if you can hit on the highlights of what you plan to do, and then the board is going to have to review your proposal, and we'll reconvene at our next meeting, and hopefully be well aligned on what needs to happen.
Yeah, that's no problem. Yeah, I definitely think it's going to take more than a couple minutes to talk about this. I would really like to push Gary for a site meeting with the board, because I think that those pictures really don't do justice, nor are they up to date either. But I think a site visit would help answer a lot of questions and help me better explain the situation, how it occurred, and what we've done so far and what we plan to do to mitigate. So I don't know if you guys are available to come out. I have a lot more information to share with you that I need a lot more time to present.
So I will say, Shane, I'm certainly not opposed to a site walk, but I want to make sure that does not replace any discussion we have in our public forum. So doesn't, the site walks are meant for us to get a visual for what's out there. But we're still going to have all that discussion in a formal meeting, because a site walk is not considered a formal meeting. There's no minutes, and we really can't have any discussion.
Can I share the screen quick? Just do a quick high level of our corrective action plan and photos.
Sure.
Photos from today. Is that all right?
Yep.
All right. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
All right. So as John mentioned, here was the highlighted open space. And here are the issues at hand. We've created a corrective action plan in response to the items that have happened. You guys can review this in more detail. Basically, it tells you to date today, what we've done to correct the problems that John had inspected on back on March 1st, and then rolling into some of the open space disturbance completed items, some of the proposed items we plan to do, and then all the turbid water situations that we had at the site. And then some other miscellaneous items that we propose to do to help mitigate this. But in the meantime, we've also attached site photos that were taken today. All the areas that John has referenced that was disturbed has been cleaned up, and all brush boulders all throughout these areas that he's talking about have been removed. Everything was peeled back to its natural elevation. We touched up all the loamed areas and did a fine rake, and we plan on installing a hydro seed mix for stabilization on Wednesday. So just wanted to give an update on the area in the open space. Anywhere there was trees, we peeled everything back, to the base, and we plan on completely restoring this. If you guys want plantings throughout here, we have no issue doing the plantings, but I just wanted the board to know, as soon as John came out and mentioned the issues at hand, we jumped right on it, and in the last 3 weeks, pretty much cleaned everything up out there. So that's why I was saying a site walk would be beneficial. And then we also hired Goddard Consulting. They're kind of managing all of the issues with any of the open space and the mitigation from the plumes that happened. And those photos that John had sent were the day of the 50-year storm. We got 4.18 inches of rain last week. The Goddard Consulting did a review the next morning. These are some photos of those areas. We stockpile hay bales and straw wattle in case there is breaches, but pretty much this is the area where the sediment had breached, that's been cleaned under Goddard's inspection. And then also here's the other area that had leaked, and some photos of just the wetlands themselves. So Goddard, I provided a report as well, which is a mitigation and inspection report from Goddard that references those plume areas, but no sediment reached, the open space or is of any concern, which you'll see in the report. So, Courtney's with me on the line. All we want to do is reiterate we're here to do whatever we need to do to, fix it, and we have. So I've invited everybody out to a site walk to kind of take a look and give their opinion, but we're open to, whatever we need to do to make it right. It was, no excuse. We take blame. The areas where it happened with the open space was the areas we literally had zero setback from our retaining wall or our drainage systems to the open space. And what, as luck would have it, it was all ledge. So we had to blast, and we did our very best to mat it and try to control it. But with zero setback, it was extremely difficult. And but again, we'll do whatever it takes, and open for any suggestions. And want to do it as soon as possible. We'll fix it tomorrow if you wanted something changed.
All right. Thanks, Shane. Appreciate the update and appreciate you trying to move quickly on this. For the planning board folks, you guys up for a site walk on Saturday?
Sure.
I can't see. I see Mary with a thumbs up. Shane, maybe if you can stop sharing.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. All right. Sorry. Planning board members, thumbs up for site walk on Saturday?
I'm unable to.
Down,
I can't.
thumbs
I
up,
can't.
thumbs
I'm done.
down. Okay. We could wait until the, let me check my calendar. What's the following Saturday? Following Saturday.
April 1st.
Is April 1st better for folks?
I'm out the first, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Let's
If
just,
it's short, I can do it. It's my wife's birthday, so I don't want to be too, I can do it, but it has to be a short one.
yeah. Well, let's go ahead and plan for this Saturday. The applicant's request is that we do this sooner rather than later. And again, this isn't a requirement for folks to be there, but certainly helpful. As we get into the springtime, I'm just curious, would people be open to 8 a.m. instead of 9 a.m.? Thumbs up, thumbs down?
Fine with me.
No, normally it's just that just this Saturday I already have plans. That's the reason I can't make it this Saturday, but otherwise
Okay.
8 a.m. is fine.
All right, I saw a thumbs down from Jane, so I guess maybe we stick with 9
8:30?
a.m.
You want to go with 8:30?
If we could, that helps me out a lot.
All right.
All right, let's plan on 8:30. Shane, where should we park?
I don't know if you guys remember the first meeting we did, but right at the end of Lincoln Street, there's plenty of parking on the road there and along the new, addition. You can just pull your cars up. We'll meet you right there.
Okay. All right. So 8:30 on Saturday. We will continue this discussion, and that'll give us a little bit of time as a board to review what you've put together, and hopefully we can, like I said, align pretty quickly on next steps.
Cool. All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, moving on. Box Mill Road street acceptance. John, do you want to quickly walk us through this process?
Sure. So street acceptances are part of town meeting. Box Mill is now up for acceptance. We had Bay Associates do the final inspection. They brought up a couple things, and then the developer fixed those things. Bay Associates went back out, confirmed that everything has been done, and that it is basically complete. So now the board has the report. So there's 2 roads in the report that's in the administrative items folder. One of them is Box Mill, one of them is Fox Hollow. Hopefully we'll get Fox Hollow on an agenda in the next month or so. There's some very confusing legal issues with that whole development that they're trying to work out, and hopefully Land Court is going to be nice to them and let us go through the process. I think it should all work, but right now we can separate them in the report. You can recommend the Box Mill report be sent over to the select board and recommend all the findings in that report, and that can get that process started, and then we can do the same for Fox Hollow when that comes up, if you believe that the report is okay. Would you like me to pull up the report?
I've had a chance to review it. I'm okay with it. Are there any members of the board that have questions about that report?
No, it was straightforward.
All right. Well, if there aren't any questions or comments, then I will entertain a motion to accept that report only for Box Mill and recommend that it be sent to the select board.
So moved. Mary Larson Marlowe.
Second, Ron Prefer.
Thank you both. And just so people realize, street acceptance is the domain of the select board. So our job is just to accept the report and then recommend it go to the select board. All right. Assuming no further discussion, Mary, how do you vote?
Yes, Mary Larson Marlowe.
Rob?
Yes.
Fran?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Elise?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Matthew?
Yes.
And Gary is a yes. So that motion carries. We'll hold off on the minutes until the end. At this point, we will move into our public hearings. And I am going to entertain a motion to open the public hearings for electric vehicle parking, rooftop solar exemption, inclusionary zoning bylaw, zoning map change at West Elm Street, zoning map change at Hayward Street, 0 Lumber Street, the trails, Wilson Street, 86 Elm Street, 28 Lumber Street, and 17 Pratt Way.
So moved. Mary Larson Marlowe.
Second, Ron Prefer.
All right. Mary, how do you vote?
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
Fran?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Ron?
Yep.
Elise?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Matthew?
Yes.
And Gary Trundle is a yes. And then just as a formality here, let's go ahead and clear out the ones that are requested a continuation. So the first is the earth removal permit application at 0 Lumber Street, and that applicant has requested continuation to April 24th, 2023 meeting. So I'll entertain a motion to continue that hearing to April 24th, 2023.
So moved. Mary Larson Marlowe.
Through the chair.
Second.
Yes, is there a question? Yes, Stephanie.
Sorry. We also have to vote to extend the decision deadline.
Okay, so that would be 7 days after.
They requested a date specifically. Let me pull it up.
May 4th is what was in the
May 4th. Okay. So
I accept that friendly amendment.
thank you, Mary.
Second.
The amended.
All right. All right, April 24th, the decision of May 4th. Mary, how do you vote?
Yes.
Rob?
Rob, yes.
Fran?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Elise?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Matthew?
Yes.
And Gary is a yes as well. The other one to continue is, I'll entertain a motion to continue the hearing for 28 Lumber Street to April 24th, 2023. And does that one need a continuation on the decision as well?
Nope.
It does not. Okay.
So
I'll
moved. Mary Larson Marlowe.
Second, Ron Prefer.
Thank you both. Assuming no further discussion, Mary, how do you vote?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Fran?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Ron?
Yep.
Elise?
Yes.
Paul? Paul?
Yes.
Matthew?
Yes.
And Gary is a yes, so that continues as well. Okay, that's the formalities stuff. let's get into the proposed bylaw amendments that came to us from Zach. We had quite a bit of, we had some good discussion on these at our last meeting. Since then, we, on the electric vehicle parking, we've had comments from town council. John, can you pull up the edits from town council? I think they're reasonably straightforward. And you know what, John, maybe it's do you want to just quickly highlight the proposed amendments? If you just want to speak to it, it's probably, since you're driving, it's probably a little easier. If you could zoom in a little bit, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Everyone see? All right. So, town council had.
Are we talking about the EV
Which
electric
one would you like
vehicle?
to start with, Gary?
Yeah, let's start with the EV parking.
So first, just some edits to the actual language of the warrant article, some legal stuff, taking out the in order and then maybe amended from time to time. I guess those are just standard boilerplate language. Any questions on this page?
No.
And then the only other changes, just some clarification on the ADA and other legal language that goes along with that. No substantive changes on this suggested. And then again, some more language changes, and that's about it for the EV. So no substantive changes, just some language changes, legal language changes, and I guess grammatical changes.
Well done, Zach. Thank you. Questions or comments from the board?
Question through the chair.
Yes.
I know that Zach, I believe they looked at a lot of other towns and what other towns were doing. Are we kind of, I think we discussed this, but I'm not positive. Are we on par with other towns, or are we trying to add more EV ready spaces or EV powered spaces, or less? Like, I'm just not sure with the difficulty I have is if you fast forward time like 5 years, and 5 years doesn't, in the big picture is maybe not that long away, are 40% of there's going to be some percentage bigger than what it is today that are driving electric vehicles. And do we want to be on the leading edge of this? Or do we want to be where we are today, I guess, as a world with electric vehicles?
Yeah, it's a fair question. And maybe if someone from Zach could chime in with specifics. I know that they referenced a lot of standards in creating this. I don't know if Mary or Elise, or I think Ted is on as well. Are any of you comfortable in giving Rob a little bit of background as to how these recommendations came to be?
Through the chair, this is Ted.
Hi, Ted.
Hi. Ted Barker, Hook 75 Grove Street, co-chair of Zach. Rob, I didn't prep for this article because I didn't think there was going to be too much discussion, so I don't remember for sure. I think that it came to us with a lot of John's help, and that it was in keeping with the leading edge. I do remember plenty of discussion was it behooves the owners of commercial parking to have more EV charging stations if that's the way the world goes. And that probably they will outpace our standard because it helps them. If we get to a world with 40, 50, 60% EV vehicles, those people are likely to shop where they can charge their cars while shopping. So it wasn't really a big concern for us that we were going to be behind the curve. Those are the discussions I remember.
All right, thanks, Ted. John?
Through the chair. I just also want to point out in the town council letter, they mentioned that the concerns that they have, if any, are that the state will say that the building code preempts this. And so basically all that would mean is that they strike this and they say, no, you can't do it. The argument that we have for that is that this covers things that are not covered in the building code. So the point of what I'm saying here is, though, this is consistent with the building code. So what the building code requires for new construction, this is consistent with that. So we're not leading too far and we're not lagging too far.
All right. Any further questions or comments from the board, and then we'll open it up to the public. All right. Any questions or comments from members of the public? All right. Well, on that note, then, I will entertain a motion to recommend the town meeting vote to approve this article with the amendments included from town council.
So moved. Mary Larson Marlowe.
Second, Ron Prefer.
John, I just want to make sure, is that the proper way to move this? Okay. All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Mary, how do you vote?
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Fran?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Elise?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Sorry, Paul. Is that a yes?
Yes. Yes.
Matthew?
Yes.
And Gary Trindle is a yes, so that motion carries unanimously. Next one on our list is rooftop solar exception from site plan requirements. Again, we had, I think, a good amount of discussion. We had a very minor changes. John, do you want to just walk through town council's comments?
Yep. So really only changes that were in place for the language of the Warren article. No substantive changes to the proposed zoning language.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board? Or the public? All right. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to recommend that town meeting vote to approve this article with the changes to the warrant language recommended by town council.
So moved. Mary Larson Marlowe.
Second, Ron Prefer.
And assuming no further discussion, Mary, how do you vote?
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
Fran?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Elise?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Matthew?
Yes.
And Gary Trindle is a yes. That motion carries unanimously. Inclusionary zoning bylaw. John, walk us through town council comments.
All right. So the first changes up here are just some language changes, similar to what was on the other ones. And then you've got maybe amended time to time, as with the other ones. Missed an S over here, and some grammatical changes. So all the strike through are what's being proposed under the bylaw, or under the bylaw change, and the bolded is the new stuff. So the red is the town council. So just in case that anyone is confused by that, all of the stuff that's black, that's bolded and struck through is what's the actual proposed change. The red is the town council change. Requiring a written waiver instead of just explicit consent. Some grammatical changes. And some language changes here, just taking it out from the end of the set paragraph to the beginning. And that's it.
All right, thanks, John. And I think it's worth noting the one change from 2 weeks ago was we are rounding up, not rounding to the nearest whole number.
That is a question I had through the chair. If I recall, we had said it would be rounding up versus rounding to the nearest whole number. As we talked about at the last meeting, that will ultimately potentially trigger the dipping underneath of 10% if people are building 14 homes on a regular basis, or 14 home developments on a regular basis. And by forcing the round up, that will ensure the longevity of our community and not triggering that potential disastrous outcome where someone can come in and just build what they want. So that's why I was when I was reading it, I was like, where did that go? And again, how was that changed?
Yes.
So through the chair, that was, so the original was sent to town council, and then a follow-up email was sent clarifying that the planning board changed that language, and they clearly used the original one. So they're aware of it. They just didn't include it in their review.
Okay. So then really quickly, and I guess I just want to make sure, and I know we still have to, I just want to make sure that members of the planning board are comfortable and understand that change is being proposed. Because I think what we'll need to do here is make a few edits to this. I think they're reasonably simple, but I just want to make sure that folks are aligned with that change. This does not mean that you're voting to support this article. It just means, and we're not going to do a formal vote, but just kind of let me thumbs up, thumbs down. Do people, I guess my first question, do people understand the change that Ron is proposing?
Yes.
So in this scenario, if there's 15 units developed, there would need to, 2 of the 15 would need to be affordable?
Correct.
Yes.
So in this scenario, if there were 12 units, then 2 of them would need to be affordable.
Or pay in lieu of.
So, and you're asking do we understand or if we're supportive?
So before we vote on the article, we have to decide if we're going to revise the language to represent that rounding up instead of rounding to the nearest whole number. So I'm looking for some level of consensus before we go in and start editing words here to make sure that the board thinks that this would be appropriate to round up instead of rounding to a whole number. Yes, John.
If the board would be more comfortable, I can reach out to town council. We can continue this hearing and not take a vote on recommendation at this meeting. I can reach out to town council, have them revise this letter to include that change since we did suggest it to them. And then we can vote on that if the board wants to avoid any confusion.
Okay, I like that suggestion. I think it's just a little bit cleaner and it saves us having to edit real time here. I would ask that folks of the planning board just give that some thought because that will be a minor tweak here to what town council reviewed.
Could I make a comment through the chair?
Sure, Rob.
I think if we, depending what happens with deciding if we endorse this proposed bylaw or not, making that change would, in my opinion, have additional impact on what people vote at town meeting. I just don't see residents wanting, like, in that scenario of 11 units built and 2 are affordable. I don't see that as something the participants at town meeting will be supportive of. So we're getting to a point of whether we endorse this and it's going to be an article on our town meeting. If we want something that's going to be accepted, that should be, I think it should be a consideration if it would be approved at town meeting, because I think it just makes it more onerous.
Yeah. So I think and hang on one sec, Matthew. I think, again, part of the rationale here is that if someone were proposing a 14 unit subdivision and they only built one affordable unit, then based on some rough math here, that means that 7% of the houses would be deemed affordable. So that would effectively take our percentage of affordable housing units down. We also have A&Rs, we have subdivisions that are smaller than 5. So if the goal of this is to help us maintain our current percentage of affordable housing stock, then I personally think that change makes sense. So, again, I just want to clarify that's part of the rationale as to why we're rounding up instead of rounding to the nearest whole number. Matthew, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I don't know how much debate we want to take on this right now, but I tend to disagree that the 11 is a magic number. If somebody doesn't want to build 11, they could just make 10 slightly larger properties, or it goes into their calculation. And regardless, I think the town, if they understand the repercussions of not hitting that, not keeping above 10%, the population that's here and wants to have control over the town's zoning rules and all that, I think would be in favor of encouraging affordable housing in new developments.
Thanks, Matthew. Other thoughts, Mary?
Through the chair, I don't think this is just in general on this article and on the other articles we have before us tonight. The ones that were debated and discussed for public comment at the last meeting, I think you should open it up for public comment only on the new aspects of it, or on each one. So in this particular case, it would be only on the rounding and not the entire article, because that was already fully discussed at a public hearing. So.
Okay. Other comments from planning board members? And again, part of what I'm looking for here is before we go ask town council to review and update, I just want to make sure that we have that we're moving in the right direction here.
One more comment through the chair, if I may.
Actually, Rob, hang on one sec. I want to give other board members a chance to comment, and then I'll come back to you.
Sure.
Fran?
Through the chair, I am in favor of, having town council review the revised language, because I am in favor of the proposed rounding up that Ron had talked about. I think for the reasons you Mr. Chair, had mentioned, as well as from Ron himself. So that's my perspective.
Right. Thanks, Fran. Paul, Elise, Jane, any perspective before we come back to Rob?
No.
All right, Rob. Mic is yours.
Oh, I just want to make sure everybody on the board knows about some aspect of affordable housing, because I didn't know probably a year ago myself. But in affordable housing, there's an affordable housing project, and then there's 40B projects, which are part of the affordable housing standard. So a 40B project in Hopkinton, the Muse behind 110 Grill is a good example. There's I think it's 260 units that count as affordable, but because it's a 40B project, only 65 are actually affordable. So in Hopkinton, we have the two largest projects that are 40B, that are affordable housing units, are Legacy Farms and behind 110 Grill, the Muse. And so those count for about over 70% of our affordable units in Hopkinton. But the reality is only 25% of those are actually affordable. So the percent of affordable units in Hopkinton is the real number is way smaller than 10%. So this would be in my mind, this would be a significant change to what people are used to. Like, we don't have single family units dispersed amongst neighborhoods. Should we? That's a totally different debate. But right now we don't as a community. We have them in specific locations. There's off the top of my head, I think there's about 10 to 11 locations across town. And it's not in the 12 home neighborhood. where there's 12 single family homes. So I just wanted to basically make that distinction that there's 40B projects which allow for the whole number of units constructed to be counted as affordable, but the reality is only 25% of those are affordable. And then there's other projects that are not 40B that also count as our affordable housing number. And all of those units have to be built as affordable, and they're not 40B projects.
Okay. Thanks, Rob. I will open up quickly. So it sounds like we've got general consensus to have town council review this with the changes that were discussed. I do want to open up quickly. Are there any members of the public that would like to comment on this? Okay, I don't see any there. So on this one then, we will go ahead, or I will entertain a motion to continue this hearing to April 3rd, 2024.
So moved. Mary Larson Marlowe.
Second, Ron Pfeiffer.
All right, so no further discussion. Mary, how do you vote?
Yes.
Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
Fran?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Elise?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Matthew?
Yes.
And Gary is a yes as well. Okay, let's move on to the citizens petition articles. And we'll go ahead and start with West Elm Street. John, any updates from Town Hall on, we'll start with West Elm Street. Any updates on that one?
Updates and how?
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure there was nothing that I missed, but we don't have any town council review of those. And there aren't any proposed changes to it.
No, so town council is not going to, they included in their letter, but they only included the language. They're not going to propose changes because it's a citizen petition, and they're not going to give comments as to legality or anything like that because it's a citizen's petition. So it's really just, they kind of leave it as is.
Okay. Questions or comments from the board? And again, we'll just talk about West Elm Street first, which is the church property on the corner of Elm and Main Street. West Elm, excuse me.
I noticed since our last, through the chair, I noticed since our last meeting, there's been 2 new emails sent in regarding speaking up against this. This was not presented at our last meeting, if I'm correct. I'd be interested to hear from members of the public about this.
Yep, Ron, that would be the next step in our process. After the planning board, we would entertain comments from the public. But John, did you want to add something before we do that?
Yeah, so there were 2 comments that you received probably when you looked, but in the last hour, I've received a number more. So I've added them to the shared folder as I receive them. They're all the same form letter, but I just want to make the board aware that we have received many since the start of the meeting and just prior to the meeting.
Okay, so if no one from the planning board has any questions or comments, I will open it up to the public. Rob, did you have a comment? You're muted.
I asked John over email today, and it's not doable by tonight. If we had any zoning changes through citizens petition in the past 30 years, and he reached out to town clerk to try to get that answer. But I think the precedence of zoning changes by citizens petition, I know I'm considering that heavily. So I don't know when we could get that information, but I just thought I'd let the rest of the board know. I reached out to John, and he tried contacting the town clerk to see if we could get that information.
All right, thanks, Rob. Other questions or comments from the board? All right, questions or comments from the public? I see Mansoor. I apologize if I mispronounce your name, but you have your hand raised.
Yeah, hi.
Please start with your name and address, and then you've got 3 minutes.
Yeah, my full name is Syed Syed Quadri. I live on 14 Wild Road, Hopkinton, Mass. I'm a resident of Hopkinton. So my concern with this petition, with the zoning change, is that this church is a religious gathering place, and being a member of the community, we would want this to remain as a place of worship, not change into a zoning that will allow this place to be converted into some kind of apartments or condos. We want this to continue to be a place of worship for other community members to explore further if there is an opportunity to use this place as worship. So that's my only comment.
Thank you. I do want to make note that places of worship are allowable under all of our zoning bylaws. So regardless of how this is zoned, any house of worship, whether it be a church or a mosque or a synagogue, would be allowed in any of our zoning. Mary.
Yes, and just to expand on what you just said, we also cannot, in our zoning, force the next business to be a house of worship there.
Yep. Thanks, Mary. Mary Overholt, I think you had your hand raised next.
Yeah, I did. I just wanted to comment. I was one of the sponsors for this petition.
And sorry, Mary, could you start with your full name and address?
Oh, yeah, Mary Overholt, a member of the church, and I live in Upton. I just wanted to comment that one of the questions raised last time was if we had talked with the neighbors, and we did put together a flyer and walk around the neighborhood just to make sure people were aware of the proposed change so that they would know about it. That's all.
All right. Thanks, Mary.
Yep.
Faiza Chogle. Again, I apologize if I mispronounce. You're muted. Hang on 1 second.
That's correct, Faiza Chogle.
Okay, go ahead. And if you could start with your name and address.
Yeah, Faiza Chogle from 15 Poplar Lane, Hopkinton. So I've been following the discussion and on this. As one of the members of the planning board just mentioned that we cannot have another house of worship, instead of this, in the same, what she meant was we cannot have another house of worship instead of a commercial property. But my question is, if you try to rezone this into a commercial property, buying another house of worship is going to be nearly impossible in Hopkinton with the rates that we have right now in Hopkinton. And I don't know, I just got to know about this situation very early in the morning, and I was just confused. Hopkinton has embraced diversity so well. I'm a new resident here. As another resident just mentioned that, it should be open for any other, group of faith that would want to, take over and move on and, continue with the house of worship. So it can be any community, and we are so diverse right now. If you make it impossible by rezoning this into commercial, I don't know, it's hard. It's hard to, pick up a big loan to, kind of have a house of worship. So what I'm saying is, if this is, zoned as nonprofit, it probably will be easier for any group of faith to, kind of, not easier, and everything is in millions right now. It will be relatively easier to grab, a loan and kind of, use it for worship again. If this is moved on to commercial, it's going to be impossible. So I would just request the planning committee and the select board that we are very happy here. We are new here and we love the town. And I would like you to continue, to kind of keep it open for everyone, since you have been so open in embracing a beautiful diversity in the last few, 5 years or 10 years. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And again, I just want to clarify, number one, we are not able to zone things as nonprofit, but to Mary Larson Marlowe's point, we also can't require this in any capacity to be a house of worship. So just want to make that point that while a house of worship is allowable in all of our zones, there are other allowable uses as well, regardless of what the zoning is. Famida Rashid.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
I'm
Go ahead. If you can
Famida.
start with your name and address, and then you've got 3 minutes.
Yes, I'm Famida Harun Rashid. I live in the Legacy Farms North. I also recently moved to Massachusetts like a couple of years ago, and then we are happily living here in Hopkinton. So I have the same concern as our other brother and sister raised. So it's about the zoning being converted to a commercial. So before coming here, I was of a different opinion, but now I have a question first. So if it's zoned from a residential B to a commercial, so it makes it makes it very difficult and for the non-profit organizations to bid, since it will be the bid from the commercials will be on the higher side. So my question would be, so somebody just said that it cannot be a place of worship. Am I right?
No, it can be a place of worship.
It can be a place of, okay, even if it's zoned commercial, it can still be a place of worship.
That's correct. Places of worship are allowed in all zones.
Okay, but will they be still protected by the same, will they be still protected by the special protections for the religious non-profit property?
Yes.
Okay, so they'll still have the same protection. So our only concern would be it will become nearly impossible to compete with the other giant commercial properties which would try to bid when it's rezoned to be a commercial one. So that would be our only concern. So that would put us away from the opportunity of trying to set up another place of worship, be it a masjid or a temple or anything. So yeah, so if the planning board would think about that before they make any decision on that, it would be great.
Okay, thanks, Famida.
Yep.
I'm sorry, through the chair.
Oh, yes, Stephanie. Sorry.
Could I get Ms. Rashid's actual address for the minutes?
Yeah, it's 22 Cherry Lane, Hopkinton.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Stephanie. Ria.
Hi there. How's everyone doing today? I look at this property and I say that the highest and best use of the property is a commercial property because it is right off the highway. The value of the property would be a taxable situation for the town. I was talking to a neighbor today. By the way, I'm at 39 Oakhurst Road, so I'm right around the corner. I was talking to a neighbor today and he suggested, well, we need more commercial property to offset the number of kids that are hitting the school system. This is one of those properties that would sell for a lot more if it was actually zoned commercial. However, I would never want to infringe upon a neighbor who is next door that didn't want that to be commercial. I always feel as though the people who have been here the longest, they deserve to maintain the life that they paid for initially. I've been in the town since 2004. I've seen a lot of changes on South Street and this particular intersection. And the only thing I would suggest is if the board considers this turning into the commercial, that it would be a sustainable design. Because right now we don't have anybody on South Street. Well, not anybody. A lot of people on South Street are not even complying with night sky. And we don't need more lights up in the air. We're very close to the lake here. And the problem is that we are not taking care of the community we've got here. So all I'm saying is if you're going to turn this into commercial, that it be of a sustainable design and comply with night sky guidelines. All and, right. For sustainable design, I'm talking about, permeable site with proper percolation, water collection on site, because this property is very close to the watershed that we're all living around. Make sense?
Yep. Thank you, Ria. I will note that we can't impose new or certain restrictions on a per property basis. So what we're reviewing before us would be to convert this to commercial zoning, and whatever is proposed for that site would have to conform to our bylaws and standards. There is some potential to update those in the future. That could happen before it was built, but I'm not aware of any means, and candidly, nor are we in a position to flush something like that out before town meeting. So I hear your points. I'm also an advocate, and I think there's a lot we can do to improve sustainable building practices, but that's realistically, and that might be a point of consideration for people as they review this. But it's, for now, it would be whether we want to change this property to a different zone.
Thank you.
All right. Next was Nawaz Karim. And I guess I'd ask if you want to make the same points, please just be please be brief. We have a long ways to go tonight. I don't want to restrict anyone, but go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Nawaz Karim. I live in Upton, and
I'm sorry. Hang on one second. John, we don't usually have callers that are not residents of Hopkinton. Can you remind me what the protocol is?
So generally, I think it's probably town meeting rules. If the board wants to hear from the person from outside of town, they can allow it. But generally, the public comment is reserved for stakeholders. So either residents of the town or members of the site in particular. But it's up to the board.
Okay. I'm hopeful we're wrapping up here, and if the speaker can keep his points keep his remarks short, I'm okay allowing him to continue. I'm just looking for the board if people are also comfortable.
Well, I just heard from somebody that sponsored this that lived in Upton, so I'm assuming that would mean that neighboring towns could also have a voice.
So they are representing the owner of the property, which is why we allow them to comment. But go ahead. If you can keep it brief, go ahead.
I will keep it brief. Thank you. So this has been a place of worship. We have been looking for places of worship. There's a big diversity both in Hopkinton and the neighboring towns. There isn't really a requirement in a neighborhood like that, even though it may be close to 495. It is a neighborhood, and there's really no reason for a neighborhood like that for it to be converted from a place of worship. We don't want places of worship to start to disappear on us. There are several diverse communities out there, and they should all have the opportunity without this being commercialized. That's all I'll say. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, I just want to point out we are not restricting places of worship if we were to recommend this zoning change. Ronak Vyas.
Hey, good evening, everyone. This is Ronak Vyas from 5 West Elm Street. I'm after the church, very first property is mine. And when I heard about this, when Mary came to our place and hand over that one-page document, my concern is if we change the zoning over here, we already have, it's a small street, very narrow street. We already have heavy traffic, and adding more commercial over here in the street would be, adversely affect on the traffic. And apart from that, I recently moved over here with, considering, okay, this is very nice and quiet place and next to the lake. It will impact on my property value as well. So I have a real concern with those changing the zoning. I would like town to consider appropriately overall impact on traffic conditions as well as neighborhood.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate you calling in, and we haven't heard from a lot of the butters, so that's great. We lose Jamie there. All right. Well, let's move on to Marwa Eid.
Yes. Hi. How are you?
Good. Can you start with your name and address, please?
Yes. So this is the husband of Marwa. So my name is Yahya Kurdi. We live at 1 Greenwood, Road, off like Hopkinton. And I just want to ask a couple of questions. So the current owner of the church, the land and the property. So it seems we are addressing the zoning before the property is coming on the market. Is there a reason for that, or like what was the reason for that? What I mean is usually like a place will come on the market, then it will be sold, then the new owner might try to change the zoning if needed, for example. So in this case, why we are doing it in this fashion?
I don't think there's anything necessarily unusual about this. It's completely appropriate to rezone prior to a transaction.
Got it. So the current owner could sell the property to whom they want, and then the new owner could decide what they want to do with this place, even if they don't want to keep it or to make it commercial. They could keep it the way it is. So right now, what's the current zoning of this place? Is it considered religious zoning, or is it?
It's residential.
Oh, okay.
And again, houses of worship are allowed in all zones.
Got it. So again, from our standpoint, for the support for the freedom of the religions in general, this place has been, supporting like a type of religion for like many years, and it's already in the setting of that service. It's close to the highway, so people from like different communities will be able to have easy access to this place. And out of the bigger picture, for nurturing the diversity of the town, for different religions, different faiths, different backgrounds, we believe that it will be worthwhile to consider something that has been serving this fashion of religious support for like many years, that if there is like a big part of the communities that support that to stay or to serve that purpose, I think it will be very reasonable for the committee to consider the wish of the citizens that live in this town and see if that could be something that complement what the town represents overall.
Yeah. Okay. So appreciate your comments. I do want to just make note that the planning board is not determining anything here. This will go to town meeting, and it will, assuming all things can carry forward, it will go to a vote at town meeting. So the planning board is only recommending whether or not town meeting approve this. And I also think it's worth noting that there's a lot of case history in general. We are not considering financial implications for property owners as part of this decision process. So I hear your concerns, but our job is to assess what's before it and make a recommendation based on what we think is in the best interest of the town.
Got it. And there was that rumor. I don't know if you could correct me or not, but there was this company that was buying. Let's say, if there is companies that are buying lands for commercialism, that will make it harder for places to be residential in general. Is that something that the committee look into in general?
No.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. That's it.
Okay. All right. I think we are okay. I see more comments, and I'm going to ask folks at this point. We're already a little behind schedule. If you have something new to add, by all means, we want to hear it. But if you're just going to repeat points that were made previously, you can still state your position, but please be brief. So, Spencer. Do we lose Spencer again? Spencer, if you want to unmute yourself and start with your name and address.
Spencer Loveland, 26 Lake Point Way, Hopkinton. Our property is just on the other side of the trees that face the church property from across the narrow part of the lake. And we're 430 feet or 0.088 miles, 800ths of a mile from the church. And although when looking from the church, it can appear that the trees provide dense cover, we can see the church from our house for the 6 months of the year that the trees are without leaves. So we're concerned that our view and potentially some other living environment aspects, as well as property value, might be negatively impacted in one or more of the following ways. Depending on what happens to the church property once it's purchased. We're concerned about a possible decline in the residential character of the neighborhood, increased traffic volume, especially near the busy intersection of West Main Street and West Elm Street, possibly increased noise level, possibly an increase in the number and intensity of nighttime light sources, possibly diminished air quality, depending on what kind of emissions the business might have, and also the possibility of a deterioration of the lake water quality. So we're just where we can see the value of changing the zoning of the two parcels, and that it has the potential to increase the likelihood of a timely sale. But we'd like to ask the board to also consider these potential impacts to our immediate area of the church in making this decision. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Spencer. Our last public comment is going to come from, not sure what your name is, Skogel. If you can go ahead and unmute yourself and start with your name and address, that'd be great.
Yeah, hi, this is Sami. Sami Chogle, 15 Poplar Lane. Thank you for taking my question. My question was more about the considerations that the planning committee takes into account when they are deciding what's best for the town, and I just wanted to get a sense of that. Sort of, is it just the yeas and nays of the people of the town, or are there some other aspects that perhaps we're not familiar with that you would be considering in this decision?
Yeah, that's a great question. We take a lot of things into consideration, ranging, we do listen very closely to concerns of abutters, from potential traffic, we do look at financial implications. So for example, from a tax perspective for the town, we consider nearby zoning. We really look at a pretty broad subset of considerations.
Okay, thank you. So my comment would then just be that if we were to, as a town, to agree to rezoning, then there is that potential that groups of people that might want to get it for a place of worship may be priced out based on this being commercialized, right? That's the only sort of factor here, because again, like you said, it doesn't prevent anybody from place of worship. It doesn't prevent any other sort of laws stipulating anything else. So it's really just the pricing that would go up, that would maybe price them up.
Yeah,
right.
And I honestly couldn't tell you what a group that would want to purchase a church would be willing or able to pay. But again, that's really not within
I would just
our consideration. So, but I'd also say too that if this doesn't go through, there are still changes to the what this land could be used for. So it is zoned residential. It could be converted into other things as well. That would not be a place of worship.
Great. Thank you, Gary.
Okay. Planning board, are we ready to take a vote here? I think so. So, and again, just as a reminder, all we're doing is we are going to be reviewing this. We're going to be voting on whether we recommend this article as written in the warrant for approval at town meeting. So I will entertain a motion that recommends the town meeting vote to approve this article as written in the warrant.
So moved, Mary Larson Marlowe.
Second, Ron Prefer.
Any further discussion?
I would,
Mary,
through the
go ahead.
chair, just encourage everyone online to attend town meeting and vote, because no matter how we vote tonight, it's still coming up at town meeting, and our vote really doesn't matter as much as the town meeting vote. Okay?
Good guidance, Mary. So Mary, we'll start with you. How do you vote?
I vote yes.
Rob?
No.
Fran?
No.
Jane?
No.
Ron?
Yes.
Elise?
I vote yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Matthew?
Yes.
And Gary is a yes, so it would be 6-3, so that motion carries. All right, our last citizens petition is for West Elm Street. And I think, is Peter on?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm here.
Hi, Peter.
Ours is south at Hayward. You would misspoke.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm backwards here.
Okay.
It's been a long day. Peter, I understand you might have a quick update for us.
Yes,
again, just in the interest of timing,
expediency,
keep it quick.
I'm asking you for an extension, Mr. Chairman. We are trying to set up, or we have set up a neighborhood meeting, and we'd like to be able to hold that so we can discuss the issues that were raised at the last meeting. I did ask you for a date certain and asked you to continue this to April 24th. If you would allow that, we'll certainly be back to you with enough time before that meeting to let you know how we've made out.
All right. Thanks, Peter. I appreciate your willingness to work with the neighbors. So on that, I will entertain a motion to continue this public hearing go ahead, Mary.
Sorry, John, does that jive with town meeting in terms of getting it on the warrant and the recommendation and so on?
So it's on the warrant already. If they print the warrant and the planning board's recommendation isn't on there, it'll just say planning board is going to recommend prior to town meeting. And then, I mean, you can make a recommendation on town meeting floor if you want to.
And what is the date of town meeting?
May 1st.
Thank you. All right.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion to continue this hearing to April 24th, 2023.
So moved. Mary Larson Marlowe.
Second, Ron Prefer.
Any further discussion? And just for members of the public, because we're just going to continue it, you'll have an opportunity to make your comments on the 24th. Any further discussion before we take a vote? All right, Mary, how do you vote?
Yes.
Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
Fran?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Elise?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Matthew?
Yes.
And Gary is a yes as well.
Thank you very much.
All right. Peter, don't go too far.
I won't.
Moving on to the trails. And Peter, I understand you have an update for us.
Yes, sir.
And I will say, because this all came in today, Oop, sorry, I just had to mute someone there. Because this all came in today, I have not reviewed all of it. But why don't you give us a quick update as to where things stand?
Great. And I'll go as deep as you'd like, because I do have my exhibits pending if you want. So we were able to resolve all of our outstanding issues with our peer review engineer, Phil Paradis at Beta. What I provided you in packets today were the off-site improvements, which are occurring on Town of Ashland land off Wilson Street. I provided you with our on-site improvements package, also a long-term operation and maintenance plan for the stormwater systems at the trails. And all of those items were bundled together with a global revision date of March 16th, 2023, so that we could tie everything together with final decisions for both your board, the Conservation Commission in Hopkinton, as well as the Ashland Conservation Commission, since there are multiple permit filings that are affected by these changes. Again, I can get into any specifics if you'd like. There was an 8-sheet set of documents for the on-site. There's a 3-sheet set for the off-site. The operation and maintenance plan is probably like 20-odd sheets. And then the cover letter that we used, we also bundled the drainage calculations that supported this, as well as a third-party reviewer that looked at the revetment slope. So again, that the boards and the commissions would have all the documents in one place.
All right. Thanks, Peter. I do appreciate your effort. Unfortunately, when those come in the day of the meeting, it is not feasible to review them. We do have deadlines for things to be considered in our meetings. So I'm not in a position to finish this up tonight because candidly I haven't reviewed it. But I know that Phil has had a chance to review them. So I do want to turn it over to him really quickly and get his thoughts. And and then we'll open it up for questions from the planning board and from the public if they so desire. Phil.
Yes.
How are you? Nice to see you.
Yes, good to see you guys. So just a kind of a summary of, I think there are 10 different changes to the plan, 10 items, 11 that the applicant has requested. Some of them are built, some of them will be built, etc. So the first one is the trailhead parking. So they want to do a couple changes to that. They want to change the surface type to a porous material of stone, and they also want to reorient it so that they don't cut down trees. So the long and short of it is they're going to relocate the parking, relocate the path that connects them to the upper park. And yeah, it's going to be porous material. So I think we've worked through all the details. I don't see a problem doing that. The second item was the wall behind units 78 to 84. This is between two sets of houses. There is a 2-to-1 slope that was created. The landscape materials were relocated from the bottom of the hill to the top of the hill, and a stone trench and some drainage were added as well. Again, we see that all the details are shown and adequately portray what's out there, so we don't have any engineering issues with that change. They eliminate the wall behind 75 to 89 Weston Lane. Now this is the big wall behind, adjacent to Ashland property, or the Ashland water system or water works property. So this one's the least of my favorites, but because a couple things is that observations indicate it's hard to tell what kind of base they put it on. They report that they did have a geotech company observe all the compaction and all that stuff. So, and they ultimately wrote a letter saying that they trust the wall. So I think we're going to lean on their expertise on this. They were out there when they watched it. So the fourth item is let's see. The fourth item is the outfall relocation and wetland feature. Really, this doesn't affect much. They did provide. We just wanted to make sure that it matched what was actually constructed. So again, we don't have an issue with that. And it will actually the additional distance will actually add some additional treatment. The infiltration basin behind along Wilson Street on the western side, is that no northern side of the property. So they created an infiltration basin. So we made some recommendations relative to trying to make the most use out of it and provide as much recharge as we could. So those details have been provided, and we think it's about as good as it can get. The modifications to Basin 1, this one we had some back and forth. Basin 1, we don't recommend they go deeper because it has a impermeable core that they would have to create. And since I think that they're pretty close to going below it now, and also we didn't recommend that they enlarge the basin. I think there's some question as to how easy that would be to maintain and such. So they are going to relocate the outfall. It's not going to be on the slope anymore. It's going to go directly south toward the wetland feature and a more natural outfall situation. Again, I think they've done the best they can in that situation. With the addition of other features on the site, I think the stormwater will be addressed adequately. Number 9, was that 8? No, that was 7. 8 is a modification to Basin 3. Basin 3 is not built yet. It's part of the next phase 4, I think. So they just relocated it. You know, it really has little. It does impact a little bit more the buffer zone, but that's more of a conservation issue. Again, we don't see any engineering issue with this change. They did add number 9. They added roof infiltration system on the properties where they could to the soils that were adequate for infiltration, mostly on the north side of the project. They and I think again we went back and forth some engineering issues, but I think they've adequately addressed that, and this will be one of the aspects, along with the other infiltration basin, that will compensate for not increasing the size of Basin 1. And number 10 was the sidewalk modification. They are proposing sidewalks on the something side of the, anyway, what we wanted to make sure is that they had an adequate pedestrian access to the clubhouse. They've since adjusted that. But generally, Beta defers to the planning board on that issue relative to sidewalks. We would prefer that they would continue to use the grass strip as even a minor improvement to stormwater runoff. But again, we defer to the planning board on that issue. And number 11 is really an off-site issue. The off-site swale It doesn't really impact the site plan itself. It is it does help the town of Ashland in preventing it's reducing the occurrence of flooding by directing it to a different outfall. There is a debate as to what if there are any resource areas that it's going to impact, and I think that the commission is going to discuss that issue as Kim looks into it further. So anyway, so from my standpoint, all the engineering issues are addressed, and yeah, I just leave it up to you.
Okay. Thank you, Phil, for the summary, and thank you, Peter, for working through those issues with Phil and the beta team. I just have one question, and then I see Ronnie has his hand raised, but this might be for Peter. And again, I haven't reviewed your most recent package, but what did you end up proposing for potential modifications to the sidewalk and the grass strip and whatnot? Where did you land?
Yeah, so we did ask the board to consider allowing us to eliminate the grass strip, but in order to make the sidewalk edge more robust, because that was discussed in the field and again during one of our meetings, we are proposing to use a slope granite curbing. I actually have a picture queued up if you want to see that, but basically the plans were approved with a bituminous Cape Cod berm as the edging material, but along the sidewalks we would substitute for the bituminous curbing, we would use granite, so the slope granite curbing. The board had asked for us to consider that for the waiver, if you will, because you are waiving the grass strip, and that is on the plans. The details for the sidewalk with the granite edge is all shown on the plan the way we've submitted it. So it's in a position for you to make that a condition of approval.
All right. Thanks, Peter. And I appreciate your willingness to use the sloped granite there. I think that's a nice, durable option. So thank you. Ronnie.
Yeah, thank you very much. And through the chair, that was a second follow-up question with the sidewalk. When we were at the site visit, and maybe Phil mentioned, I maybe have misheard it, there was discussion of where to extend the sidewalk, whether it was going to be on the same side as the clubhouse or on the opposite side. What was the final change, or was a change a petition made for that or not?
Right. Yeah. So that's also on the plans. There's a detail right on the plan that shows the connection to the clubhouse. And there's also the sidewalk is brought on the west side. We want to get pedestrian traffic crossing further away from the curve on Legacy Farm Road North. So that is still on the plan, and we are proposing a crosswalk at that location as well, which will work out with your DPW director.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for addressing my question.
Okay.
All right. Other questions or comments from the planning board? And I do see that Rastim has his hand raised. I don't know do you have a question or comment on this project?
Actually, no. I had a comment to the rezoning change, but yeah, okay, it's done now.
Okay. All right. You can just click on the same button and that'll lower your hand. All right. Well, and Peter, I would love nothing more than to get this to a vote tonight, but like I said, I do want to go take a look through the packet. I'm going to recommend that we continue this one and ask that members of the planning board review all those materials. It's certainly great to have it all in one final package. So thank you for that. So I will entertain a motion to continue this public hearing to April 3rd, 2023. And if I recall, we do not need to extend the decision.
So moved, Mary Larson Marlowe.
Second, Ron Briefer.
All right, is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, Mary, how do you vote?
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Rob,
Rob Benson, yes.
Fran,
Yes.
Jane,
Yes.
Ron,
Ron Prefer, yes.
Elise,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
and Gary is a yes as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter.
Good night.
Moving right along. Wilson Street. See, Rory has already started sharing his screen. Rory, are you gonna give us an update as to where you've landed?
Mr. Chairman, good evening, sir. No, I'm going to leave most of the talking to Mr. Christopher. I am just here to share my screen, sir.
Okay.
How you doing?
Mr. Christopher.
Yes. So from our last meeting to this meeting, there was some, I believe to be minor changes we had to update. So we'll show you what we've done here now. On the screen here is the overview. All the points were issued with the letter that we presented to the board. So those will all be referenced in that letter. There's the tree heights, the species of tree, and each comment along with the planting orientation, center to center distance. So I think this is just a high level overview. I think it'll be better from the renders and the pictorial view. If Rory, you want to switch the page here. So with our discussion here at the front area on Wilson, we're having some trouble really deciding kind of, well, I wouldn't say trouble, but deciding exactly what to put here, trees, and making it and finding a way to block the equipment. We had mentioned a fence, but our landscape architect, he recommended we possibly look at these planter boxes. So, this is the option we kind of all agreed upon. And there would be 5 planter boxes around the equipment. This would give us optimal room to still do our maintenance and our code rules with the setbacks from the equipment, and also would not allow us to have to really do anything major to the asphalt or what was installed there. These can just be installed right on the ground level. And then we also would introduce a few blue spruce at the front of the road, and then we just put the standard grass on the left side. So that's kind of what we have here for the views. If you go to the next slide, that's just kind of a sketch up to show, the height, the dimension, and where the boxes would be located on site on the entrance. And then here is the view from Tom's property, kind of highlighting and showing to see what that view was that was brought up last week with the equipment, and us being able to screen and shelter that from the view from the neighboring property. And then as we continue on, these are just the changes that we've made. We now just show the blue spruce, the boxwoods that would be installed in the setback area. This also gives you the quantity of tree, the height of tree that was asked for in the last meeting. And then next slide, will be from Tom's property to show you the green, coloring for the screening of the fence barrier. And then continuing on, we've got our installed method here of blue spruce and red oak. Those, again, the rocks would be eliminated, the box would be installed, and then we would put the fencing screen barrier on the fence. Next slide. And then looking from Ed's property, again, we made the modifications with the green fence screen, and we've taken the board's recommendation to put the blue spruces in the area that need to fill in some of the holes. I mean, we could have kept the green giants, but we decided based on the recommendation just to put all the blue spruce. So there you can see the green fence screening, the blue spruce in the north area, the addition of those, and then to the left we still have our berm trees going down the side, and those have been changed to the recommended blue spruces too as well. So I think this is basically the high level of what the plans are, what we'd like to do on the site, and looking for approval to do that in today's meeting. So I guess that was fairly short, but there was some minor changes we had to make, and those are what we recommend to install on site.
All right, thanks, Chris. A couple of quick questions for me. Number one, just out of curiosity, who's the landscape designer that you used for this?
It's State Line, the landscape company that we use.
Okay. And I guess I'm so a couple of quick questions or comments from my end. Number one, the planter boxes.
Mm-hmm.
So how are those maintained? I mean, I guess I'm struggling a little bit with this one. One, because they actually extend onto the pavement. Two, because at least in my experience, above grade planter boxes don't generally thrive very well on their own. Can you give a little more detail about that? And I know it's a tough spot, but boy, I look at this and I'm struggling to see how this has any chance of survival for more than a season.
I mean, again, I really don't have the full comment on that to know, how long things are going to hold up, but I believe that, varnished and, the right construction, I think that we'll be able to have, a good amount of lifespan out of them. Ideally a fence was brought up, so we figured that this was kind of the equation of both of those. Opposed to just having a fence would probably have, I think the fence would have about the same comments too. There would have to be some review of that, but this kind of pulled two of those methods together.
Okay. On the blue spruces that are dropped in the line of the green giants, I remember those green giants being pretty tight and how they were planted. Is there even room for the blue spruces? And just from a landscape design perspective, I realize that this is effectively a clearing in the woods, but at least in the renderings, I worry a little bit about them having sufficient space to grow, and just kind of even on the side yard, there's a row of green giants with one blue spruce in the middle. What's the thought process behind the one blue spruce?
The side yard, those are actually the spruces on the back there. The front of them are the green giants, but on the row, those are, yes, you're correct. Those are all green giants. I mean, we can, stick to the plan of putting them all there. I think we just had took the comments in a way that was what was wanting to be the newly installed trees. So
yeah,
I think that's an easy change. If that's the recommendation.
I guess it's the one in particular is that one by Mr. Chambeau's property, that just kind of the one in red right there. You move your cursor.
That back line though is actually a spruce. They already spruce.
Oh, they are.
Yeah, the front is the green giants on that.
Oh, okay.
Area. Yeah.
All right. That's the rendering. It looked like there was just one blue spruce.
It's just that photo was probably grabbed, was not the same photos, but those are actually a different type of tree on the back there. So the ones in the front are green giants, the one in the back are a spruce.
Okay. And then my last question, the disturbed buffer zone. I didn't see anything in your report about rock removal and reclamation of that disturbed buffer zone.
If you go back to those photos, please, Rory, just in the one on Tom's area. Yeah. So in the letter, it should say that where those boxwoods are going, we're going to remove those rocks. We talk about loom and seeding, and in the drawing, on the first drawing that shows the presentation of the overall view of the revisions, it talks about actually looming and seeding those areas, adding the additional boxwoods. It talks about the looming and seeding of the underground buried conduit line, and it talks about the looming and seeding of the front area, as well as the looming and seeding halfway down the roadway of the 70-foot buffer that was.
Okay. Does it acknowledge removing the boulders that were deposited there, though?
I believe that
Chris, if I may, sir, I think this is a good point. I'm not sure that, as I wrote the letter, good point, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure that the specific language about removing boulders is in the letter. I think it is more assumed, and it is not written down.
Okay.
I'm happy to make that clarification, sir.
All right. Thanks. Hang on one sec, Mary. I'll just let them finish up, then I'll go to you. All right. Well, those were my questions. Mary.
Oh, I was just going to say regarding the boulders, we can include that in a condition to clarify it. So, and that should be no problem. I think other than the worry about the planter boxes, I think that all the design changes are appropriate, and that sounds good. So, and we'll have conditions around the maintenance and the time of maintenance and rechecking it after, a season to make sure that things have established and so on. So,
yeah, that's a great question, Mary. And I actually talked to John about this earlier because there is, we do have a proposed condition for 5-year life on all the plantings. And just so that people are aware, in the original approval, there is a portion of the bond that is specified to cover costs of landscaping. It's a $10,000 bond, but there is some money in there as well. Ronnie.
Yeah, through the chair. So thank you. Firstly, I don't want to thank the applicant for all this information. We'll go to slide where it has the planter boxes. This is my only quabble, shall we say. Again, this could just be my opinion, and so I'm going to leave it to the rest of the planning board to give their opinion. I think the planter boxes actually make it look worse than for your previous rendering, and I would encourage. It's just my opinion. I like the other one better, and actually, I would suggest for both security as well as aesthetics that you go back to that and actually, if possible, move the fence to be in front, or the gate, I should say, to be closer to the road, and therefore add a little bit extra shielding, shall we say, to the power boxes there, because it's a two for security reasons as well as adding a little bit, hiding the electrical box a little bit. I could be alone on that idea.
Thanks, Ronnie. Matthew.
Thank you. Yeah. In addition to the rocks, I may have missed in the letter the specifics about the fence and the fence covering, just in terms of something else that I think was implied with the 750 series green being an attachment, but I didn't see specifics about the covering mentioned. My main point that I don't think's been touched on. I did hope to see more of a narrative in the letter about why things were chosen. Something we talked about last meeting, and the presentation was definitely a little bit helpful for some of that, and I do appreciate that in some cases it addressed that it was replacing a tree that didn't survive. I'm glad to hear that we've already discussed how to build that into the conditions. I would have liked to have had more from the landscapers or explanations for why these were chosen. It is a little disconcerting that the answer to some of them was because of implications that we suggested that when we repeatedly said that we were not landscapers and it's not our job to present this. And I'm a little disappointed that that was the explanation provided for some things.
All right. Thanks, Matthew. Other members of the board. Fran.
Through the chair, just kind of on the planting boxes, I agree with the comments that have already been made. I guess my question to the applicant through the chair is, what other options were considered to screen those mechanical units in? I've heard fencing. I know that there were some plantings previously. What else were you guys kicking around as ideas?
Plantings was the number one. That's kind of what we we had, and then, you know, a fence came up and we just kind of we looked at the two together, so.
And the fence option was not deemed feasible, I assume? That's why you went with the planting boxes?
I mean, the fence option is feasible I mean, that's it's an option.
May I provide a little bit of clarity, sir? Because again, we went to the site the day after the last meeting just to gain some additional clarity about being on site with the landscape architect. And there is less than 3 feet between the edge of the asphalt and where the pad or the concrete of the pad is. And again, what the landscape architect was concerned about is the viability of any plant surviving in that condition. And so that was the thought. And I apologize for not clearly narrating that. It just, will a plant actually survive? I know we showed it in the last rendering, but I want it to survive and look nice over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Understood with the board's concerns regarding how do we maintain that? Just to provide some clarity on that.
Rory, I think we all agree with you. I think where we disagree is why wasn't space considered when it was constructed to allow for proper screening? Because I would agree with you, and I think we expressed that concern about survival of any plant that's between a concrete pad and an asphalt driveway. But I guess just to build off of Fran's point, at what point do you just shift those concrete pads over and allow for proper screening of those boxes?
Or shift the asphalt.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the
yeah.
You would just have to cut away the asphalt. I don't really know how planting trees that grow, like I say, I know we talked about grass. I mean, that would probably be the only thing we can put in there, but we can't, you know, plant a tree that's going to expand to, you know, basically cover these things, right? Over time, the tree's going to get way too large to be.
Yeah, I don't think we're asking for trees. I think we're asking to not see the boxes from the street.
Yeah, it's going to be hard with shrubs and grass to do that, right? So, I mean, we all know that answer. Yeah. So I think that, you know, we have to have some kind of structure there. I mean, and why it wasn't done in the beginning is, I mean, they were installed to where it wasn't the plan. And unfortunately, you know, like some of the other things we previously had said, it didn't show the trees in the front, but I know we you know, the response we'd have to that, but yeah, so it was overlooked there, yes.
Okay. Other comments from the board? Mary.
Well, I'd kind of say that, you know, if you think the planters are going to work and the plants are going to survive in those over winter, and you know, we can go with that. But then if they don't, then you're probably going to have to consider Plan B and put fencing around it. So I don't know.
You know, can I just throw out an idea here? And I hate playing designer, but number one, the point brought up earlier about installing the gate on the other side. I think I'm just looking at this. I think if you pull that gate forward so that it's in front of the units, you've got the blue spruces there that are in front of the units. And you install a kind of rustic timber fence of some kind around the units, that I'm just wondering if maybe collectively those three things not only have some longevity here, but also might be more effective and look nicer over time than the planter boxes.
All it's going to take is one pickup truck hitting the planter boxes.
Yeah.
That's what I'm worried about.
I'm more worried about things growing in planter boxes and just looking, you know, half dead, overgrown. You know, again, like maybe it's just my brown thumb, but planter boxes are not easy, and without someone on site all the time, I think that's
and through the chair, like I agree that, you know, by having a nice rustic fence up front, it adds to the historic neighborhood. At the same time, it is adding a security measure, which and also I never even thought about, like, one truck hitting that planter box and that could be pushed into the electric box, and then we have a real problem. So again, I agree with the chair's beautification proposal.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Go ahead, Fran.
Through the chair, again, the designer idea, I'm like you, Gary, brown thumbs all the way around. But if you had fencing around there and then tall grass in that area between the two, you could at least, cover the unit and have something there that would look a little bit more natural. The fencing, if memory serves, I think the fencing's there in place currently. But that would be at least an option that would require minimal, that could grow between the concrete pad and the asphalt. If you had the fencing and let that, grass or small shrubbery grow up, it at least does I don't say an adequate job, but at least it kind of starts to kind of meet the bill.
I'd also just add too that 3 feet with proper soil and loam, I think that a lot of stuff could grow on that, but if it's just leftover fill from the edge of the road and whatever was dumped there, then yeah, I don't think anything is going to grow no matter how much space you have.
Through the chair?
Yes, Jane.
Yeah, at the last meeting, we talked about tall oriental grasses. And I think if you maybe had as Fran suggested, nearer, closer to the asphalt, maybe like a split picket fence or something like that. And then the tall oriental grass in the back. And as you also suggest, if you dig down a couple of feet and put down some decent loam, those grasses will survive.
Through the chair, could I make one comment here?
Yes.
I just I just don't see a practical scenario with snow removal of really anything in the 3 feet span surviving over time. I just don't think it's enough space where snow would not destroy planter boxes, a fence. Like you just need more space to effectively store snow during the winter than 3 feet allows for. It'd be my opinion.
Well, they would have a plan for us. Oh, I'm sorry, through the chair. They would have a plan for a snow storage. It would just have to be plowed back to a certain extent.
I'm trying to recall. Are they obligated to keep this plowed and clear?
Enough for a couple of pickup trucks, I think, to get through periodically to maintain this units.
Yeah.
It's not a lot.
All right. So, Chris, I think you guys probably threw us a little curveball with the planter boxes. From what I'm hearing, I don't think they work for us.
Understood, Mr. Chairman. Please allow Chris and myself to a continuance to come back to you in 2 weeks with a fence scenario, and that we'll have to do our homework so we can give you a viable solution, sir.
Okay. I think what I'm hearing we do like pulling the gate forward, which puts us behind it. We do like ornamental grasses of some type. I think we are willing to accommodate fencing of some kind, but I think it's important that it fits the, I think that actually to be honest, the existing gate, I think that style is nice. I think it fits reasonably well. So I think, again, I think that's reasonably consistent with what we said last time. I think that hopefully gives you enough direction to go design something that from a scenic road looks appropriate for the neighborhood. Matthew.
Would we like to see some more specificity in the plan, such as explicitly the removing of the boulders and making sure that all mitigations and things are explicitly listed in whatever plan we're going to be approving, we'll just add that as conditions.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in particular with the boulder removal, and then to your point, the just making sure that the fence screening is incorporated and listed appropriately. Ahmed.
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, this is Ahmed from Grasshopper. Just one caveat on the fence or moving the gate forward. We'll need to check with the utility about that because I believe they need to have direct access to the units because these are the utilities equipment here. So, and this is why we had the gate behind this piece of equipment here for the utility. So we'll need to check on that before we move forward with the fence.
Okay. Is there an option for a lockbox or something like that? I mean, I think we've been asking for that gate to be in front for a while.
Yes, we'll definitely check on that with them.
Okay. Any new comments from the public? Mr. Shambo. You're muted.
I got my video on. I forgot my microphone. Tom Shambo, 15 Wilson Street. Just a couple of comments. I agree with all of the things that have been said today. I'm curious, you know, they had to put the MV voltage on top of the ground because they couldn't dig down, and it goes right up to those electrical boxes. So I'm wondering, can anything really even be planted? Or is there a bunch of ledge and rock and stone that they just can't dig to put something down? So that's a question. I like the idea that the apron, the drive up to the fence could be cut out 2 or 3 feet to give an extra 2 or 3 feet for plantings. And I'm guessing that there's some room on the other side that 2 or 3 feet could be laid down so they could have the same width of the apron, but you know, maybe it's just moved over 2 or 3 feet. On the drawings, point number 7, it doesn't say that it'll be loomed. So I just want to make sure that that's there so there's no assumptions being made. And then I'm just curious if there's any consideration on the timing of the work. We've been going at this for a long time, and I don't know, maybe we could say it would be done in 2023 or something like that. Maybe we can't. I don't know about that. And then who do we call, you know, when trees die or things don't work so that they can be replanted? I've not seen in any of the paperwork how to rectify that against the performance bond. Those are my questions, and I thank everyone for, you know, the commentary thus far on these revised proposed plans.
Thanks, Tom. Mr. Gelsich, on the question of maintaining oversight, or if something is not being maintained properly, what is the proper protocol there?
So there's going to be a contact that's needed for the site. I mean, the zoning enforcement official should have that information in case something goes wrong on the site. Emergency services should also have that information. So we would basically reach out to them about that. We could also include something in the conditions of any approval that's granted by the planning board now to say it's our standard condition of, you know, the project contact shall be kept current to the planning board or to the principal planner throughout the life of the project. And so when it changes hands, they are going to be required to send something to me or whoever is in my place if I'm not there to follow up so that there's always a contact.
Okay. Thanks, John. Mr. Cutter.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. And just
Okay.
a reminder, can you actually, Tom, did you state your address? I don't think you did.
Am I okay?
Oh, sorry. 1 second. I just want to have Tom.
Tom
his
Shambo,
address.
15 Wilson Street. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. All right, Mr. Cutter.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time. There are really two different sets of boulders. There are the boulders that are below the front fence gate, and I think there's no disagreement on that issue, that they must be removed as they are in violation of the 75-foot buffer zone requirement. So we'll put that one aside. But looking at point number 2, if you look across from the right side to the left side of the entryway, you are confronted by an ugly pile of boulders. I'm not making the violation of 75-foot buffer. I'm making the argument that this was something that never should have been done, that there's no possible justification for piling up boulders in this totally visible front area. We've been worried about what the entry looks like, and we put these in here. Additionally, there's the risk that the boulders may damage vegetation. With the removal of the boulders, there could be a wider area of grass up to the tree line, and this wider area of grass could soften the look of the entry greatly and project a more scenic road setting. So I ask that people give consideration to remove these boulders. They had no structural or beneficial purpose, except I expect to save some money by getting them out of the places where the panels are.
Sorry, I'm trying to understand which boulders you're referring to, and I want to be careful here, because if it's not in the buffer zone, if it's not on the right of way,
it's directly on the left of the right of way. There's the proposed plantings, which we just looked for Wilson Street entrance rendered. I think that's a wonderful photo, but it doesn't really bring the impact to light for people to see it. But if you see the trees on the left side across from the wooden planter boxes, there's just a mess of boulders there. They're a different color boulder that definitely have been put in here more recently, and they're really, really ugly. And if looking at the deeper vegetation going up to the trees, if those boulders were removed, then you could do more seeding and it would have a softer look. So I think that's a bad use of the boulders.
Yeah. Okay.
Other people understand what I'm saying, or?
Yep, I understand, Ed. I'm not sure if it's not in the right of way. I'm not sure there's a lot we're going to be able to do about that at this point.
Well, I hear you, but I think that by any standards, we're entitled to have an entry that isn't offensive to people to look at and dismaying when they walk by. And I think that's part of the deal. And this is an easy way to get some real good mileage out of this without spending a lot of money. So I appreciate if that were thought about. On point 9, which deals with the fence screen, I thank the applicant for offering this. I accept it. And I prefer dark green, which I believe is Tom's preference as well. The point 11 of the current plan does not offer as much shielding for my property from the BESS, whatever BESS is, and related items as was set forth in preceding set of plans. The most recent amendment provided for 12 trees, 9 to 12 feet in height, whereas point 11 would reduce that to just 8 trees, 6 to 8 feet high. Looking for my property, I cannot really tell how well I am being shielded, and the renderings don't help because there aren't any with this area looking for my property. This may be a moot point, but pending some other assurance, I would like to have the higher commitment maintained. Just one more. Going forward, I suggest, maybe this is board business and not mine, but I'll suggest it. Suggest that a condition should be added that sets forth a firm schedule for completion of all remaining work, and providing that failure to comply shall entitle the board to enforce appropriate remedies, including, if necessary, suspension of operations and cancellation of the special permit. We've been in this problem about there being operations before certain things have been satisfied. There should be commitment to replace all previously installed trees which have died or otherwise are in jeopardy. There is a mention in one of the points about replacing one of the trees, but if one looked at back of the cabinets with the electrical equipment in it on the entryway, I think at least half of those trees are dead at this point. So I'm looking to have a general obligation that if there's a dead tree on the site at this time, it should be remedied. I very much appreciate the full discussion of point one about shielding of the switchgear. I thought it was a wonderful imaginative idea, but I share the concern that it just may not work. And I think it's a good idea for as many people as are up to it to look around to see what other people have done. I've seen other places where people have had tasteful, maybe not fences, but almost like they were little houses. And I'm trying not to go nuts with maybe no roof, but just that a kind of cute. And I wonder if this might be an opportunity to do something like that. I thank you for your time and your consideration and your efforts to make Hopkinton a good place to live. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Ed. And I share your frustration with the length this has gone on. I think I just want to make clear to the applicant that we really want to wrap this up. And I really don't want to have to start to go down that pathway of considering revoking a special permit, but I also feel like we're pretty close here. So that's my take on that. With regards to the dead plantings, again, there is a requirement to maintain the plantings for 5 years. So that's something that's going to need to be addressed as well.
And I ask that people, if we're not making a decision tonight, they might come by and look at those boulders, and I haven't explained it that well, and see if they find them offensive. And it's a cheap and dirty way to restore some of the scenicness of the entry. Isn't the word.
So we're not going to vote on this tonight because there's still some more work to do. But maybe this is probably a good time. I'm just looking for thumbs up. Or people want to have further discussion here, or are we ready to continue this one to next meeting?
Continue.
All right.
Next meeting.
Yep.
I will entertain a motion to continue this public hearing to, I should know this date by now. We've been doing a lot of this. April 3rd, 2023.
So moved. Mary Larson Marlowe.
Second, Ron Prefer.
Assuming no further discussion. Mary, how do you vote? Oh, yes. Go ahead, Fran.
I thought that the abutter, one of the abutters that commented about potentially the option of a box around the electrical units was a pretty cool idea. So I would just ask the applicant through the chair to consider more than just fencing and consider something that it would be semi-attractive. It's my only point, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
May I mention something that I...
No. Sorry, Ed, not at this point. I think what hopefully the applicant is hearing is we want to see your best and final effort here of something that looks like it fits in the neighborhood, that properly shields the equipment from the street, and that fits in with the street. So I think we're all pretty clear on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Understood, sir.
Okay, thanks, Roy. All right, Mary, how do you vote on continuing?
Yes.
Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
Fran?
Yes.
Jane?
Jane is a yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Elise?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Matthew?
Yes.
And Gary is a yes. So thanks, Chris. Thanks, Roy and Ahmed, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. All right. Moving forward, 86 Elm Street. Michael, are you going to be leading the applicant's discussion here?
Yes, I am. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board. My name is Michael Dryden. I'm a senior project manager with Allen Engineering, here on behalf of Elm Street Capital once again. And just a quick recap, we were asked before the board back in early January. The project was submitted in late November. And we've spent considerable time back and forth with Beta Group. I believe the letter that they issued today was the fourth letter, dated March 20th, actually. And I don't want to speak for Mr. Paradis, but I believe that they have provided all their quote engineering input, and we have resolved the engineering related comments. There are several items, however, that do require some discussion with the board. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll leave it up to you how you would like to proceed at this point.
Yes. Michael, why don't you go ahead and lead us through those items that still warrant discussion, and then we can circle back with Phil and make sure that he is aligned, and if he has any other comments or issues to address.
Okay, makes sense. I will be as concise as possible. I know it's getting late. So I'm going to start on page 2 of 13. There are 3 waiver requests. These were not discussed back in early January. And just quickly, W1 on the letter is regarding the location of the loading for the building.
Sorry, Michael, hang on one second.
Sure.
Mr. Gelsich, are you able to share the letter on the screen just so that everybody can follow along?
Excellent.
John, I just wanted to make sure you were still awake. That was all.
So mid-page there under waiver requests. The first one is relative to the location of the loading bays on the building. Typically they're to be located to the side or rear of the building. This is an industrial park setting. As you all know, there are 5 existing buildings that screen the proposed building. So the loading technically is in front, but it's not visible from any public way. W2, we asked for a waiver for street trees around the parking area, which is consistent with the rest of the site. Again, there's no real screening needed. This proposed building is behind 5 existing buildings in the industrial park. Finally, W3, we're asking for a waiver for no sidewalk along the frontage. There's no sidewalk there now. There's no connecting sidewalk to Lumber Street. I think Lumber Street Extension is the closest sidewalk to the site. So those were the 3 waivers, and we'll come back to those as we move through this letter as quickly as possible. Under zoning, Z1, Beta is wondering if the board would like additional information on the use. Now, I did not present the project back in early January. My colleague did, but it was represented at that time that this is a flex building and generally consistent with the other uses in Elmwood Park. There'll be no manufacturing, no hazardous waste. So I guess Beta is just saying, is there additional discussion warranted for the use? There's no specific tenant identified yet.
All right. Michael, if it's okay, I the ones that are ready to discuss, let's just check these off so we don't have to come back and revisit them. On Z1, any perspective from the planning board? Mary?
I'm comfortable with the explanation given by the applicant for this, the potential uses for this building, what type of building it is, and therefore the type of tenants that might be attracted to it.
All right. Thanks, Mary. Does anybody feel otherwise? All right, Michael, I think we're good on Z1.
Okay. To Z3, this I believe was briefly discussed at the initial hearing. The zoning map shows an agricultural A line. There's across Route 495 to the west is an agricultural district, and Beta is suggesting that this be deferred for additional discussion for town officials. We represent that. If you look at the map, there was, I believe, a clear indication on the map that the agricultural district was not intended to extend across 495 to the project boundary. By doing so, it would prevent buildings within 60 feet of the property line. That just, to me, doesn't make a lot of common sense. So I think Beta is just deferring that to the board for discussion.
Yeah, as I read this, it looks like they're deferring to the zoning enforcement officer.
It was written that way initially, and then the letter I have before me just says to the town. And again,
All right.
I would represent that if you look at the zoning map, and I can share my screen, I do have it. It's pretty clear that the intent was not to restrict buildings to the agricultural district in the industrial district. That is at least my opinion, Mr. Chair.
All right. You want to share your screen and Phil, want to share your thoughts on this?
Can everyone see that?
Yes. Oh, nope.
Now it's
Lost it.
gone.
I'm not sure what happened there. Where did it go? We'll try this again.
What is that, a 66, 67?
72.
So 72, there it is. Boy, shame on me.
You weren't supposed to see that.
The convertible throws me off. If it was a hardtop, I would have known.
Let's see. I'm not sure where I had this all queued up, and it's not going so well all of a sudden.
Just disappeared.
Why? I cannot seem to figure out.
I might be able to help you with that.
Just bear with me one moment here. Let me go to, I had it all queued up, and let's try this. Can you see my screen still?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that, everyone. So this is the site, this is Elmwood Park that you see here. And you can clearly see these light gray lines. That's the edge of the 495 right-of-way. And you can see that the color is extended beyond the right-of-way for the industrial park. It's the purple. It goes through the actual edge of the highway. So a couple of things here. Any agricultural use certainly would not occur within the 495 right-of-way. So I'm a little confused why that is actually in the agricultural district. And number two, I don't think it was the intent for 60-foot setback from this essentially yellow line into the site. And for further evidence of that, if we look at the adjacent development, it's in line. So that 60-foot mark would be way back here, and it wouldn't allow this adjacent development. So I just, again, Mr. Chairman, I don't think the intent was to have a 60-foot setback from the agricultural district.
Okay. Phil.
Yes. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't disagree. It's just not normal that a zoning line would go all the way up to, you know, not inside a right of way. So I obviously didn't make this map, so I don't know if that intent was correct.
Yeah, I think, Michael, what I'm struggling with, oh, John, go ahead, John.
I do just want to point out that you can see and maybe this doesn't help, I don't know, but you can see, and I'm pointing on my screen and obviously you can't see my cursor, where the RB district is on that map right there. You can see the RB district crosses over borders, lot lines. It's my understanding, yeah, there and also east of the site. It's my understanding that per Massachusetts law, and how we've interpreted it in town, the zoning map controls. And so it's where the districts are shown because they do cross borders. And we actually have a provision in our zoning that says if you have a lot within two districts, the more restrictive district controls that lot, or at least the development on that part of the site. So I think in this case, we need to go with the zoning map, and I can get a determination from Chuck if you guys want me to. But the zoning map does allow for cross borders districts. They don't end on parcel lines. So I believe as it's shown, the edge of the IB district would be aligned with the roadway. And it doesn't, to Phil's point, it does not make sense. It's not usually how it's done. And it may be a glitch of our GIS system of when they made the map in 2015. But that's how it is. And that's how it's usually interpreted.
All right. So what I'm hearing is that, for me, I'm not necessarily comfortable trying to judge the intent of things, but it sounds like a reasonable pathway forward to get an interpretation from zoning enforcement officer on this. And he's in a better position to make that judgment than I feel like I am. Sorry, Michael. Go ahead. Did you have
I was going to say it's unfortunate that this conclusion wasn't reached in early January, because we clearly would have done that. We thought this was extremely dry, and from a master planning standpoint, it wouldn't make sense to encumber the industrial district with a 60-foot setback along a highway. It just doesn't make any reasonable sense, but I certainly respect your deliberation.
I hear you. You very well might be right. But it is what it is. So if we're going to make an exception or we're going to judge the intent, I want to make sure that we've got that appropriately documented, that we followed the right assessment to do so.
Understood. Shall we move on?
Yes.
So I will stop sharing. You want to put those comments back up, John? So Z5, there's a comment regarding landscaping. As I read the bylaw, it requires lawns and or trees, and the landscaping plan that we provided does indicate lawn areas. Certainly, in our opinion, there's no additional screening needed to 495. There's a pretty significant strip of vegetation between the building and that area. So again, that was deferred to the planning board.
Thoughts from the planning board? Mary, do you have thoughts on this?
I don't, when we did the site visit, it appeared to me that the trees that are present right now in the buffer zone to 495 were sufficient in that location. And that this particular site is not, it's kind of already enclosed by other industrial buildings. So there doesn't need to be any screening from, say residential or anything like that nearby. So as long as the lawn areas are specified on the plans, I think that's sufficient.
Anybody have any further thoughts on that or opposing view? Matthew?
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to find the right hand. If I recall from one of the earlier comments, there was some, in addition to the screening, there was concerns about heating and other issues that trees would block. Although, to your point, in the rear of the building, there are plenty of trees. So I'm not sure how big of an impact that would have were it to be screened in the front as well, or how much that plays into it.
And I think, Michael, I think your intention was to circle back to the waiver requests and the street trees, but I think from a lawn and from a screening perspective, I think as a board we're comfortable with what you've shown given the surroundings and existing use around it.
Okay. And yes, I will circle back to the waivers as you suggested. Moving on to Z7, I believe this is the same as the use issue on the previous page. Z1, I believe it's the same comment relative to use. Yeah, I guess the only difference here is Beta is recommending a condition be included. I don't think there's any objection to a condition. We don't think it's necessary. There's no objection to it.
Phil, any further background as to the recommendation to include a condition on proposed use?
Well, I think it should be clear to whomever is going to use this parcel or this project is that, because of, it is located in the Water Resource Protection Overlay District, that they are not allowed to have those things, so. It, you know, it's, obvious, it may not be necessary to have a condition, but it would spell it out for any prospective tenant.
Michael, is that a reasonably, I mean, that, from what Phil's describing there, that seems reasonable to me. Is there any problem from your end with?
Again, we don't object to the condition, but I want to add that it's no more responsibility to make sure that he's not in violation of the permit. We're not.
Sorry, you're breaking up there. I can't hear your audio.
Oh, sorry about that. How about now?
It's a little better.
Nothing's changed. So the onus is on the landlord, essentially the landowner, to make sure that he's not in violation of zoning. Again, I don't think he's opposed to the condition. I would suggest that it's probably not necessary, but I'll leave that up to the planning board.
Yeah, I think Phil makes a good point there. I would like to include a condition there, and I say that only because we've been burned in the past by not appropriately documenting things in our decision. So while I hear you that there are other obligations to make sure that the use is in compliance, it's helpful to us to make sure that that's specified as part of the decision document.
Okay.
And I just want to confirm that with Mr. Gelsich. And John, that's common practice for us, correct?
No.
No?
I'm trying to think of when we had a condition that said the future use of the site cannot be non-compliant with zoning.
Yeah. Well, okay. I'm glad I asked you.
Through the chair, if I may, this is the property owner, Nicholas. Gary, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Just a quick comment to confirm Michael's presentation and our original presentation to the planning board in January. We are not anticipating any exotic uses for the site. We are not planning on requesting special permit for uses. We are fully anticipating that the use will absolutely be by right and will absolutely be very similar to the existing uses that you see there today. So the zoning itself, as John just alluded to, as Mr. Gelsich just alluded to, the zoning itself is the condition. We aren't going to bypass the existing zoning. It will be by right, and we are not requesting special permit.
Yeah.
That was just a side comment.
I hear your point. I also just want to remind folks that this permit has longevity beyond you and your ownership of the land. So despite what your intentions are, if this land were to change hands in some capacity, this still applies. So if Mr. Gelsich is comfortable, or if it's not standard for us to include some type of language around intended use, then I'm okay not including it.
So through the chair, I mean, I don't think we usually do this, but we do sometimes include a condition that says all other permits and bylaws must be followed. Which is also in the same vein of like, yes, of course that has to happen. So I've just drafted a quick condition that says any use located on the site must comply with the zoning bylaws. I think that's fine.
Okay. Seems implied, but if that gives us a pathway forward here, I think that's fair. All right, let's move on, Michael.
Okay. Moving on to page 5 of 13 to SP4. This is relative to fire department emergency access. We did meet with the fire department on several occasions. They had comments. We addressed those comments. Mr. Gelsich is in receipt of a letter from the chief who had signed off completely on the project. So again, Beta is just deferring to the, in this case, the principal planner.
I think we lost, look, you're there. John, can you scroll down to, sorry, Michael, that was
SP4.
SP4.
Trying to figure out my audio problems here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Sorry about that. So again, we did satisfy the fire department. They issued correspondence that they are fine with the plan as designed.
Yep. So I think we're okay there. John, are you?
Yes, we've, the letter I think should be in your file.
Yep.
Yep. FD.
All right, so we're good on SP4.
Moving on.
Yep.
Bottom of the page under utilities, U1. This is relative to the capacity of the sewer. As you'll recall, part of the project is to abandon the on-site sewage disposal system and connect the proposed building as well as 2 additional buildings to the sanitary sewer. Again, during tech review, engineering, DPW were present. They expressed no concerns about this. So Beta is deferring to DPW whether we need to provide calculations, I guess, regarding the capacity of the sewer. And again, we've received no comments or concerns regarding sewer capacity.
Okay. John, do we have confirmation?
I'm sorry, I was wordsmithing that previous condition. What's the question?
Sorry, this is on the sewer capacity of U1. Beta defers to DPW on whether or not they need to provide calculations showing capacity is sufficient for the new proposed sewage flows.
I don't believe I've gotten anything from DPW, unless I'm missing something.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, what I'm suggesting is we met with them and they did not raise any such concerns. So while I understand why Beta is commenting on this, we directly met with them and there were no concerns or no such request made directly by the DPW or the engineering department.
Yeah, I hear you, Michael, but I don't want to take the, you know, we tend to lean pretty heavily on Beta's review here, and I wouldn't take silence as consent.
Sure. So obviously we're going to need to solve the zoning issue. So, you know, understanding that we're not closing this out tonight, we'll reach out and get some correspondence.
Yeah.
Moving on to page 6, utility 6. This one's relatively simple. I would suggest Beta had asked that we include the material for the drainage pipe. It is in fact shown in the detail. They're suggesting we show it on the grading plan. It's on the plan set. It's on the detail that the contractor will use to install the drainage. So I would suggest we don't need to revise plans for something so simple.
That seems reasonable. Phil, any reason that we should consider otherwise?
It's not typical. You usually show, you know, your utilities and the materials and the lengths and all that kind of stuff on the plan itself, and not rely on detail. I mean, that my guys would look at it first in the plan. So
yeah, I might not be typical. I'm comfortable with it because it is in the details. Anybody from the planning board feel otherwise? All right,
I agree.
So I think we're okay. We're comfortable with that. It's in the details.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to still on page 6, SW6. So I just want to spend a few minutes on this one. There's a little bit of history here. This is pertaining to the overall limit of disturbance, which in this case has been held to under 1 acre. It is close to the threshold, but it is under 1 acre. And there's been some back and forth with Beta on this issue, and we've tried to make a very clear and strong argument of our position. The threshold is there for a reason. It's a tool that provides us guidance as designers as well as the developers. We understand that we're close to the threshold, but if you look at this site, we are in an open field. It's relatively flat. There's very little topographic relief. It's the limit of disturbance on this site can easily be managed and maintained. We don't have large off-grading slopes. If you look at the edges of the plan, there's very little off-grading. So again, we've used that threshold as a tool and consciously designed the project to be below that threshold. So what Beta is suggesting is a condition that requires a stormwater pollution prevention plan as if it exceeded 1 acre. And this is one item that we do take some exception to. We understand that it is close to the threshold. The applicant understands it's close to the threshold. The future site contractor will be made aware that it's close to the threshold and that it needs to be managed accordingly.
Mr. Gelsich, do you have any guidance for us on this one?
And what comment is that?
SW6.
SW6.
It starts on page 6. And then the final comment is on page 7.
Yeah. So I spoke to Mike on this one, and there's the possibility for a condition that we discussed. And I've drafted a condition if you'd like me to read it, and the board can discuss if that's sufficient or if you want to add anything to it. Would you like me to read it now?
Yes, please.
The applicant has stated the intent to maintain the level of site disturbance to less than 1 acre. Prior to site work, the applicant shall provide the principal planner with a stamped plan showing the limit of work and a calculation of the square feet of disturbance proposed. If this limit of work is altered at any time, this plan shall be revised, a new calculation performed, and submitted to the principal planner within 72 hours prior to the alteration of the limit of work.
Michael, reactions to that?
I guess my knee-jerk reaction, Mr. Chair, is that the plans that are before you are stamped plans and they show the limit of work. So we've essentially would have already satisfied that condition.
So through the chair, it would be my intent that this is a separate exhibit of open space, or not open space, site calculation. So for the purposes, you can just submit a plan, an exhibit plan that has the exact same information. It's just that if there were to be any changes to that limit of work, you would revise that plan rather than the whole plan set.
Okay, understood. I don't think there's any objection to that, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Mary.
To the chair, yes, I was wondering, John, if that would trigger, if it's over 1 acre, would that automatically trigger the preparation of a SWPPP?
It would trigger the requirement for a stormwater management permit.
Yeah. Okay, so it would, if it goes, if amended in the future and it goes over 1 acre, it would trigger that next step in the stormwater. And would it come before our planning board again for that purpose?
Yes.
Before work could begin?
So I guess it depends on when the limit of work is altered. If they've already, so they provide an exhibit showing the square footage disturbed, right? And then say they start work and then they say, oh no, we need to bump out the limit of work by 10 feet here. And then that puts them over the threshold, then work would need to cease. They would have to apply for and be granted a stormwater management permit, and then they could resume work.
Right, but they would have to stop work.
Yes, because
in the condition, it says 72 hours prior to exceeding.
Yes, because that would allow for time to review.
Yep.
And
then it
Eventually-
could, not just the 72 hours, but after you review it, if it's over 1 acre and it triggers going to the planning board, then it would have to be a stop work for the period of time until the review happens. Is that correct?
yeah, so we can actually, that's a good idea. We can write that into the condition and just say, if the calculation results in an amount over 1 acre, the applicant will cease work, submit a stormwater management permit or cease work until a stormwater management permit is granted.
Right. Or you can even just make it more generic of like whatever additional requirements are triggered by disturbance over 1 acre.
Until all required permits are granted. Yep.
Gotcha. Okay.
If I could just please add one comment through the chair.
Go ahead, Michael.
So I think all of that is fine, but with one small exception, and again, we don't anticipate any problems here whatsoever. But if for any reason we see the need to exceed 1 acre, we shouldn't be, quote, shut down until we are exceeding 1 acre. In other words, you would still be able to work within the defined permitted work zone, and then any work outside would then require a permit. So we'd still be able to work. And maybe that's just some semantics, but again, we don't expect any problems. But
No, that's a good point, through the chair. So, as long as no work goes on outside of the original plan until the correct permits are in place, that kind of thing.
Thank you.
And Michael, I think to some degree, we've had a couple situations now where work was done beyond the perimeters of where it was supposed to be done. So that unfortunately is driving some of our sensitivity here. But we fully appreciate your intent to stay within 1 acre. We just want to make sure that it stays below 1 acre.
Understood.
All right, so John's gonna tweak language a little bit there, but I think we're reasonably aligned on the intent.
Okay, so moving on, I believe the next item for discussion is on page.
Through the chair.
Yep, sorry.
All right, I
Michael,
just
go ahead,
finished. So
John.
if you just want to wrap this one up before Mike moves on, I can read off the rest.
Sure.
Okay. So in addition to what I said before, I added, if the calculation results in disturbance of more than 1 acre, the developer shall not commence work within this additional area until all necessary approvals are received.
This is impossible to police.
Why is it impossible to police?
Who's going to be out there with literally, it would just take 1 foot outside the perimeter for 260 feet. Who's going to notice? No one's going to notice. But the potential impact to, not having a working stormwater pollution prevention plan, even the ones we've had have been not following currently. I think you're playing with fire here. I can already see 2 areas where they're gonna exceed. If they're gonna install the sewer pump station, 12-foot pump station, you can't have a excavation that's only 2 feet away unless you're gonna do the sheeting. So, I mean, the sheeting itself is gonna be more expensive than a stormwater pollution prevention.
Sorry, I'm just thinking of how to find consensus here. I hear your point, Phil. What other, Paul, do you have a comment on this? I just saw your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. I think it's important to adhere to the 1 acre rule. It sounds like they've really put that into their planning. I really like the idea that Michael and Mary have forth, and I understand Phil's concern. No one's going to be out there with a ruler measuring this, but those guidelines are in place, and I'm sympathetic to builders and people developing in our town, and especially how they already have property here. That's part of the reason why they're probably able to afford to build something like this. So, and I understand there are concerns or worries, but at the same time, that the rules, it's what's in place. So I'm very sympathetic to that, and thought Michael and Mary's idea about potential stop orders for outside of whatever they would have to do is very appropriate.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. I mean, my take on this, I mean, you know, what we do care about is to make sure that the disturbance is less than an acre. And if they feel they can do that without disturbing more than an acre, then, you know, that's for them to manage. I think what's important is that we have appropriate contingencies in place if they go beyond that. Any other thoughts on that from the board?
So through the chair, I guess I had a question back for Phil. And, you know, if you said that's unmanageable or not realistic, I think might have been the term. So are there suggestions or any additional comments or thoughts from Beta?
We recommend a stormwater pollution be created and implemented for this project. It's too close. This is a very large development, can disturb an acre of land. And I don't know if you noticed, but they've added wetland delineations around the perimeter of the site. So they have to go to conservation anyway, but.
Yeah. So thank you,
Yeah,
Phil.
go ahead.
Through the chair, I'm not as sympathetic to developers these days. We've seen and was articulated here a couple instances where developers kind of exceeded the boundaries for some of the work that they were developing, and clearly they, you know, either by accident or by design, went above and beyond. So I think asking what we're, you know, kind of following the recommendations that Beta has outlined is not being exceedingly onerous to developers, but I think it protects the interests of the town as well as potential abutters and other areas that may be impacted by going outside of the 1 acre. So I'm in favor of Beta's recommendation.
Chairman, if I could.
Sure, Michael.
So what I'm hearing is the board may actually consider requiring something that our plans do not require, essentially. There's a threshold in place. We've designed the plan to stay inside of that, whether or not Beta is of the opinion that it's tight. We have a threshold. We've complied with that. We are accepting of the condition that was discussed. I think it's a dangerous precedent for the board to require us to do something that our plans do not trigger. And I respect Phil's comments, I do. But we made a conscious effort when we designed the site to stay inside of the threshold. And as I stated earlier, that's what a threshold is for. It's so that we can use it as a design tool. This project, although characterized as a big project, is not a big project, and margins are extremely tight. And I will tell you that we have already added significant construction costs to this project because of Mr. Paradis' comments on soil type, which we feel are inappropriate. When you look at us filing a stormwater permit, complying with the 27-page regulation, not only to the town, but now we're subject to EPA construction general permit, a full-blown stormwater pollution prevention plan. These costs add up. They are very significant. So we have made a conscious effort to avoid that cost. And I don't think it's unfair to ask the board to just move forward with the condition that was discussed.
So Michael, I'm going to pause here. Number one, the board has not made any recommendation to do a stormwater management plan. That's the suggestion of one member. We are a 9-person board. I also just want to remind you that Phil does represent the town's interests, and we put a lot of weight in his recommendations. And to the points made earlier, despite what might be best of intentions or not, there's a reason we have a town representative as far as these engineering matters. So, you know, I don't have a lot of sympathy for them costing you more money. And I don't want to, you know, I just, that rubs me the wrong way when that pushback comes, because our job as a board is not to make sure that your client makes money. It's to make sure that what's built conforms appropriately and is an asset for some time to come for the town.
Totally respect
So,
that. You just use the word conforms. the project conforms. So I do respect your comments, Mr. Chairman. I'll yield.
Okay.
Can I share my screen?
Sure, Phil.
So this is the layout. And
We
there's a
can't,
limit.
Phil, we can't see it yet.
Oh, okay.
It's coming up now.
Are you seeing a plan or are you seeing
Yep.
something different?
We see
Okay.
the plan.
Okay, so as you can see, there's a line of demarcation around the project here. It is it's very tight, right up against the curb on this side. It hugs contour lines. Now, mind you, contour lines are only grades. In order to get from this grade, it's, you know, you got to go further in order to smooth out grades. You're not going to stop at a contour line. This is your sewer pump station. It's 12 feet deep, 8 foot wide. You know, so are they going to restrict it to only 2 feet off the wall in a sands condition? That's not possible. There's a water line that's not shown on this plan that is going to be likely have to be lowered because it's gonna they're lowering the grade of this parking lot by 2 feet. So it's likely to have to extend out beyond the limit of work here. So you're just on the edge, and I don't think, you know, I don't think it's possible to construct this and keep it under an acre of land. So
okay.
I'll shut up now, but that's.
Nope. I hear what you're saying, Phil. And case in point, over on Turkey Ridge, reality is you can't build a wall on the perimeter, on the edge of an open space, and not have some impact beyond that. So I think that's the point you're making. There's some tight margins here. I hate to do this, but it's getting late. We still have one more hearing to go through. How many more? Just looking here.
We're at the end. We're almost there, Mr. Chairman.
All right, let's go ahead and get through the last of the beta comments. What I'm concerned about, Michael, is that we haven't reached any resolution on this the 1 acre disturbance piece. And I'm not gonna lie, I've had a long day. I'm tired. I don't think I'm thinking with 100% right now, and I think this is one that's going to require a little more thoughtfulness on our part to get some clarity there on how we recommend moving forward. And I've seen a lot of tired faces and people off camera. That just tells me that we've got to give this a little bit more thought and come back to it. So I don't know, you know, if you want to get through the rest of the comments, you know, I'm willing to give this another 5 or 10 minutes or so, but we still have another hearing that we have to kick off.
I do think we can get through the last comments. At least we have direction as we walk away from the meeting this evening.
Okay. All right. Let's keep going.
Okay. So SW 40, I guess Beta is just suggesting that we add a note regarding waste materials. It's already on the plan. They may have just missed it. It's on sheet 10 of the plan set. There's an area depicted for storage, including of waste materials. So I believe that's already addressed. On the last page, under SW 44E, apparently when we scanned our drainage report, the map was folded over or something. So he's suggesting that there's a condition that we file a final operation and maintenance plan. We can just simply give you a fresh copy of the map. I don't think there's any reason to condition things, especially since we're not closing this out this evening.
Okay.
And then, just jumping back, Mr. Chairman, the waivers, it would be helpful for us to get some input on the 3 waivers that we discussed. I think they're fairly straightforward.
Michael, nothing's ever straightforward. All right, so the 3 waivers were sidewalks. Let me find them here.
Through the chair.
Yes, Mary.
So in terms of loading be at the front of the building, I think it's a no-brainer that it should be at the front of the building. And waiver 3, allowing no sidewalk along the frontage. Again, this is frontage of this particular part of the development there's no sidewalk really necessary there. There may be, some arguments about that one, but so less of a no-brainer. but I would agree with those 2. On W2, in terms of the plantings at perimeter of the parking lots, I would like the applicant to consider a few trees there, particularly knowing that there's that there's a daycare playground there, so shade is not a bad thing.
Yeah, Mary, and thanks for stepping in there. I was thinking along similar lines, and in W1 and W3, W1 I have no concerns with. W3, we deal with this a lot. We don't ever get sidewalks when we don't ever put them in, but I think that's a reasonable request. Are you open to including some trees? And I just in general, I think trees can do a lot, not just from a shade perspective, but softening things visually. Particularly in an industrial area like this, I think that there can be a very nice aesthetic quality to trees. And I'm wondering if there's any additional rationale that we're not thinking about as to why you don't want to include any tree plantings on the perimeter of the parking lots.
Consistency with the rest of the project, Mr. Chairman. That's really the only thing.
All right. Other members of the planning board, any perspective or guidance that we can give to the applicant? And I know I already repeated most of what Mary said, so if you have anything new to say on W1 or W3 or W2.
Through the chair, I'll be fairly fast here. Again, W1, W3 are no-brainers in my eyes. W2 is if it's whether it's trees or shrubs or Alberta spruces, something. I think there's a nice separation between the new project, we'll call it, and the daycare. That would be something nice to add and stuff like that. Yeah. It's not for me a deal breaker, but I think it'll be just aesthetically pleasing. That's all.
Paul.
Yeah, agree. 1 and 3, think no brainers. 2, I kind of, I don't know. I guess trees, but at the same time, I don't think it should be a deal breaker. It goes in line with what the rest of the property looks like. It's an industrial area. Yeah, there's a daycare, but there could be a different tenant there, tomorrow kind of thing. So I think it's very consistent with what the rest of the property looks like.
Sorry, Paul. I'm laughing at the notion that it could change tomorrow when that was part of our rationale to not put in more conditions earlier, is that the intentions were what they were. So, Fran.
Yeah, I'll kind of concur with Ronnie here. I do like the idea of planting. 1 and 3 is fine. Planting of the trees, I think that would be a benefit and an upgrade here with the new facility that's being proposed. So,
Jane.
Well, as you know, there's been a lot of talk about sidewalks, and I was just wondering, in proportion to what's going in across the street, is it a tennis court, and will there be sidewalks over there? And is there an opportunity to make this street safer by having, at least starting with a little bit of sidewalk somewhere along the line?
I'm not familiar with the tennis courts that you're referring to.
Oh, well, maybe
One's on Lumber Street, Mary, the
Yeah.
tennis facility.
Different project.
That's
sorry.
far away.
sorry,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yep. My bad. I withdraw my comment.
All right.
It's getting late.
Yeah, I am guilty of not making sense either.
Through the chair, Gary, this is Nick, the property owner. Happy to look at putting in an evergreen screen in an appropriate spot on number 2.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. And I think you've got our general perspective on waiver requests 1 and 3.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You guys okay continuing?
You mean continuing to the next meeting?
Yes.
Thank you.
I know Michael and Nick, I know you guys don't want to, but we would like to continue this, and I just want to make sure that we've got your blessing before we motion and vote on that.
Not my preference, but I feel like there's it would seem like three issues that probably ought to have a little bit more clarity. 2 of which I don't think are a big deal. 1 of which I'm pretty concerned about. So yes, I would agree that, you know, I had hoped that there would be conclusion. However, understand that request.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So on that note, I will entertain a motion to continue this hearing to April 3rd, 2023.
So moved, Mary Larson Marlowe.
Second, Ron Briefer.
Assuming no further discussion, Mary, how do you vote?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Fran?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Elise? Do we lose Elise? I think we lost Elise.
Like it.
Paul?
Yes.
Matthew?
Yes.
And Gary is a yes. So appreciate the discussion. Got a little more work through, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Great time.
All right. Our last hearing of the evening, and a very patient applicant. Sorry, I'm skipping through a lot of pages here. It is getting late. It's been a long day for many, if not all of us. But I do want to make sure that we get through introduction of the project. And if we need to schedule a site walk, I want to at least get that on the books so that we can keep this moving forward as necessary. So I see Jay is on. Who is going to be representing the applicant on this project?
So we have our engineer and designer, Andrew Leonard, who we engaged from Andrew Leonard Associates, and he'll be presenting.
Okay. Andrew.
Good evening.
The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My understanding is that this is just a get to know the project meeting tonight, and that there will be a continuation to the further meetings. So I'll quickly run through the design and the existing conditions in the design of the project, and a few of the things that we've noted in our application. And I'll just make that as brief as possible. And then if people have questions that they'd like to put out to us tonight, that would be great. Otherwise, that may be as far as we get. We've been in communication with the planning department through John, and we have not to date received any comments back from anyone that we need to respond to. So I'll just proceed with introducing the project, if that's okay.
That'd be great. Thank you.
So let me get back here. So I will share my screen. Hopefully everything will work. Where is this? All right, you should be looking at the master plan for Fruit Street.
We see your file folders.
Yeah. Well, let me try again. You are screen sharing, it says. Let's see.
Yep, we see it. It's Zero Fruit Street Master Plan, March 24th. Then the Conservation Restriction Plan. Then
Okay,
two Google Maps, Fruit Street area. We see that.
All right, let me try. Now what are you seeing? Same thing?
Same thing.
Ah,
You have to stop sharing and then reshare.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's try. Thank you for being patient.
There
There
you go.
There you go.
Got
There
it.
we go. All right, thank you. So this is the Fruit Street Master Plan from 2015. There are various portions of it that are designated for recreational use. This is a pickleball facility that we're proposing to create for 8 pickleball courts and parking and associated site features. It is going basically across the street from the existing dog park, which is located about in the R of Parks and Rec right there. And we are proposing to use this portion of this parcel number 10 for the pickleball facility. How do I advance this? There we go. This is the conservation restriction plan for the Fruit Street site, and our portion of the project is located outside the conservation restriction, right about in this location right here. And you'll see in more detail when we get to the plans how that goes with the site. Physically, looking at a Google Air photo, you can see the existing soccer fields to the north, the existing dog park right there, kind of kitty corner across Pratt Way is our area, which is an existing wooded and scrub brush covered parcel right in this area. And of course, the DPW facility down at the entrance to the Fruit Street parcel. Zooming in a little closer, you can see the relationship. There's heavier woods to the north. This area immediately to the north is mostly white pine scrub. There's a few more hardwoods as you get toward the wetland area where the conservation restriction is to the northwest. This is a quick rendering of our proposed site plan. It shows the 4 pickleball courts and one that will be a multiple use court to allow for tennis as well as pickleball in the location indicated along Pratt Ray. You can see this heavy dashed line here is the conservation restriction boundary. The actual buffer zone for any measured wetland is here to the north, to the northwest. And then of course the actual wetland resource area is an additional 100 feet to the northwest. So we do not directly impact any conservation issue. And in our initial meeting with town staff prior to submitting our site plan application, the conservation agent indicated that a review by the Conservation Commission would not be necessary for this project. The one impact we will have on an existing facility is the trail system. You can see it's a dashed line here. That's the existing trail, as well as one that comes from the conservation area down here and crosses Pratt Way heading toward the southeast. We have been in conversation with the trails people, and they do not have an issue with us relocating the trail to the perimeter of our developed area, which is indicated here and here. We are proposing the development of 24 parking spaces, which is under the major site plan threshold. We are complying with fire department requested vehicle access to the area with our with the configuration we have for entrance and exit. And I'll get to drainage in a few minutes. In addition to 24 parking spaces, including 2 handicap spaces, we have a small shade shelter about 16 by 24 8 bicycle racks, a facility for 8 that can accommodate up to 8 bicycles, a small shed for storing of nets and other equipment for cleaning the courts, and trash receptacles. There will also be signage provided for directing people in and out of the parking lot, and rules and regulations for the use of the pickleball courts. The courts themselves will be surrounded by a 10-foot chain link fence. It's basically small, miniature tennis courts, if you can envision it, which you'll see in a second. And then there will be 6-foot fences interior dividing the pickleball courts from each other. So they'll look something like this, be it green outer courts and blue inner courts with a 6-foot dividing fence with a taller fence around the outside. This is an example of how a tennis court can be overlaid. Pickleball courts, in this case, the pickleball courts would not have permanent nets, but would have portable nets, and that's what we'll need the storage facility for. And then the tennis court net would actually serve as a dividing fence between the front and back pickleball courts. This is the type of shelter we're proposing, just a simple metal shelter, very similar to the gazebo that was installed at the dog park. Typical bench, bike rack, trash receptacles, and the shed that we would be installing. Now, the drainage for the site is really, the soils out there are excellent. We've done several test pits on site. We have a complete drainage plan, which if you've gone through your packages, you'll see is very thorough drainage analysis. We are primarily proposing to infiltrate through a series of bioswales all of the increased runoff that would be caused by this development through bioswales that are located on both sides of the development. And if I could go to the drainage plan, well, let me see. There's another plan I'd like to get up if I don't screw it up. Can you see the plan with color now?
Yes.
Oh, good. So these are the bioswales on both sides of the pickleball courts. The center of the pickleball court will essentially be a high point. Drainage will go in both directions to these bioswales. In addition, the parking lot will be designed essentially as a shallow ditch in a way. It's not a good image, but the center of the parking lot will be the low point, and the high point is up here toward the north east corner, and everything in the parking lot will drain down toward this particular bioswale, and then drainage in this area will go into the bioswale located on the north side. Existing drainage coming off of this mound, which is here, will be contained in a swale that begins at this point and actually continue the existing drainage pattern, which heads down toward the northwest, which is the low point of that area, down toward the wetland. That is existing drainage pattern, and we want to maintain that so as not to have to infiltrate more than the disturbed area that we are creating. Now, I heard a lot of talk in the previous one about an acre. This is slightly more than an acre in disturbance, and that is accounted for in our calculations, and we will be filing the appropriate documentation with the state DEP and Army Corps of Engineers for that 1 acre disturbance for drainage. But we don't even have to do anything particularly special in creating the bioswales. The soils here are so excellent. Basically, all we're going to do is take off the fill soils, which are on top they vary between 12 and 24 inches deep, and expose the underneath soil, which is an excellent sandy material that is perfect for infiltrating the runoff. So basically, all we're going to do is expose that underlying material, which you can see here in the upper corner, and infiltrate the soil. The details are in the package on how all that will work from a drainage calculation standpoint. And we're hoping, I realize that you can request a consultant review of that We are a minor site plan approval submittal. I'm hoping we don't have to go to the extent of the consultant review, because we would like to get this project bid and into construction this year, hopefully. And I know these reviews can drag on somewhat. So, but I understand that they may want to do that. And if that's what happens, that's what happens. So that's basically the introduction to the project. We don't have a whole lot of impact from a zoning and standpoint. We pretty much are inside all the zoning setbacks. We don't have any structures that would require, except for the shelter, we don't have any structures that would require permits. We've got the drainage permit under control with our calculations. We are asking for a couple of waivers. There are no sidewalks on Pratt Way. There are no sidewalks connecting it, so we don't see any particular purpose or a benefit to installing a sidewalk on our project, so we're asking for a waiver from that requirement. We also are not planning to use or light this project for nighttime court use, so we're asking for a waiver from the parking lot being lit. I think there was one last waiver we were looking for. Application fee. As a public project, we're looking for a waiver from the application fee. Those are the only waivers we're asking for. Otherwise, we believe we are in compliance with zoning and planning. And we await. We had pretty favorable meeting with pre-meeting with the various town departments. The current site plan that's in our application reflects adjustments we made to meet their initial comments, and we're hoping for a favorable review and getting this thing going as soon as possible.
Thanks, Andrew. I just want to get through a couple of quick things here. Number one, Mr. Gelsich, if we can hear comments from you.
Sure. Not too many comments from me. Probably just going to reiterate some of the things Andrew said. So if you had a chance to look at the pre-submission meeting notes, that originally was a 25 space parking lot. They've reduced that to 24, which puts them in the minor site plan category. So that's why we are doing this process. The existing trail behind the proposed courts is going to be relocated. It should not impact the conservation restrictions since it's just relocating the trail. The tennis court modification is required due to CPC funding. So that's allowing for the tennis court to be, or 4 of the courts to be 1 tennis court. Parks and Rec will be responsible for the maintenance and mowing of this site. So that is not going to fall on DPW or facilities. No lights are proposed. As Andrew said, nothing is going to be done at night. And then there is the question about the consultant review. We have received a scope from Beta today. I have not forwarded it to the applicant because they were potentially going to ask the board to not have that review. I understand the board may want to have some input from the consultant about the stormwater, but I wanted to put that before the board before we gave the okay to Beta and required the applicant to give us some money.
All right, thanks, John. So I think 2 things for us to discuss tonight. One is that point, if we want to require the consultant review of the stormwater plan, and then 2, do we want to do a site walk? So let's talk really quickly about the consultant review of the stormwater plan. And I'll just share my perspective just to get things started here. To me, number one, there is a pretty extensive impervious surface associated with this, and I'm also sensitive to the well that is not very far away. My opinion, given the size of the disturbance, I am much more comfortable having a consultant review of that stormwater management plan because none of us are experts in that regard. That's my take on it. but I do want to give some guidance here, and I'm curious to hear what other members of the board, what their thoughts are on it. Mary.
I generally agree with you on that. I just think, there's stormwater, even though it's good soil there. There's stormwater. I'm very happy that they're using bioswales though.
Rob, go ahead, Rob.
Through the chair, is the consultant fee passed on to the applicant? Is that what's at issue, or is it the time? Is the consultant fee? Is that some? Yeah. So I get the time. I get the time aspect because that. But the consultant review fee, is that something we could waive in addition to waiving? Like, I think the whole town thinks adding a few pickleball courts to basically a benefit of the town is a good thing. So what can we do to do our necessary diligence, but also not like just try to be accommodating, but also do our process to make sure it's a good project as well.
If I could just interject something for a second.
Sure. Go ahead, Andrew.
Someone's got to pay the consultant at the town level, so it's got to come out of somebody's budget. I don't think it's that so much as just ask the consultant to move it along. Yeah, I'm perfectly happy to have the review. I'm confident that our drainage consultant did a good job with the design. Just, we don't want it to drag on for a month or so. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, if I can just add to that, and a lot of you know this is a highly anticipated and highly visible project in town. People have been wanting this for a long time. And if we have to have a consultant review, we have to have a consultant review, but I'm more concerned about the time than the additional money, depending, I guess, what the fee would be. I don't know what the fee is for that, but we'd really like to get this project started this fall if we can.
Understood. I think a lot of us feel the same, but given the number of stormwater issues we've had over the past several years, I think it would be very short-sighted of us to forego a consultant review.
Understood.
Particularly, and again, I just think back to the well that's over there. For me, it's something that I feel pretty strongly about.
I get it. Yeah, like again, we're just hoping to move it along. I don't know what the typical process, how long that takes, or the extent of a review. If it's again, just having not done this particular process.
You know what, Jay? If the design is good and comprehensive, and you guys are responsive to the peer review, then it goes pretty quickly.
Okay.
In most of the situations where we see delays, it's because our applicants are slow to respond. So,
gotcha. Well, there's a lot of pressure on me to deliver this, so we'll be responsive. That I can tell you.
Yes, John Gelsich.
So I hope I'm not making enemies by making this statement. In the stormwater regulations, we go by the Cornell rainfall calculations, which are wildly out of date. And internally, we have been trying to figure out the best path forward to get forward-thinking rainfall calculations, which look like they may be the NOAA Plus or the NOAA Plus Plus calculations, but we need to do some work on our end to figure that out. When I was looking at the regulations today, there is a provision the planning board can elect to choose NOAA 14 rainfall calculations. I don't know if they're any better than Cornell. Phil may be able to weigh in on that, but I'm just throwing this out there as a town project near wells. It may be worthwhile to require higher stormwater standards for this type of project. And I don't know if it changes the calculation for Phil's scope fee, but just something to consider. And if not, then we can certainly do some investigation and move forward at a different time with something like that. I don't want to put a wrench in the whole process, but we are looking at townwide with the MS4 requirements, getting those stormwater calculations up to a more up-to-date level, for lack of a better term. And this may be something, just because it's the town doing town work, maybe something we want to look at. But I don't want to, if that's going to slow down the project, if it's going to result in super increased cost, I don't know if it's necessarily worth it on this project. But I just wanted to throw this out there that it is an option for the board. Otherwise, the Cornell rainfall calculations are the ones that are used.
Mary.
I think we should proceed with Phil, with Beta for the stormwater calculations, as they're standard, they're done in a standard way, right now. But also ask if it is not prohibitive for them to run a spreadsheet twice with a few higher ones, then to throw that in as well. But just to go ahead and plan for it with the standard one that has been in use, so we don't delay this project. It doesn't seem like it should be outrageously out of scope for him to use, use two sets of numbers to calculate stuff. So.
I do think, just the interest of consistency, I think we should hold this project to the same standards that we hold all of our projects to. And John, I appreciate your points. We've talked a lot about those rainfall estimates being out of date. And to Mary's point, if there's a fairly easy way to estimate impact, then maybe that makes sense. I think the challenge is that it comes down to the implications or the design work that needs to be validated based off those rainfall. That's kind of my initial reaction to it. But, to me, we should hold them to the same standards that would be required of anyone else. To me, the fact there's a well nearby just makes me reluctant to take a shortcut here. All right. So I think we're reasonably in alignment there. All right. Sidewalk.
Happy to accommodate that. If you guys can think of a time and day you want to go.
Well, we already have a site walk this coming Saturday.
Be happy to meet you over there this Saturday.
Yep, me too.
Want to do a back-to-back?
It's a pretty simple site. It won't take long.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you guys feel about back-to-back? If we do
Might as
Turkey
well do
Ridge
it.
at 8:30, and then we do Fruit Street. It's the opposite side of town. Not quite opposite.
Maybe 10.
It would have to be
9:30?
10, yeah.
9:30.
9:30, you think we can do
I don't.
Turkey Ridge? And
I'd say
We're gonna
10.
have to stop and get a coffee.
Yeah. I have a 10:30 commitment elsewhere. So, but I guess that being said, we can do 10 o'clock and I don't need to be there. I know Fruit Street really, really well.
Well, I was the one who wanted to push back to 8:30. How about if we start at 8 at Lincoln Street? For the other one?
8 at Lincoln, then 9:30 at Fruit.
Yeah, would that be better, Gary?
Do we really think it's going to take that? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm with you, Rob. I'd rather just make them an hour apart. I don't think we need. I mean, at the end of the day, there's one
we could do
primary
that.
area we're looking at Turkey Ridge. I mean, I don't think that should take more than 35 minutes, and then we give 25 minutes to get over to Fruit Street. That seems reasonable to me.
Gives us a goal. Let's go for it.
Okay.
I don't think Turkey Ridge is 25 minutes away. I think I drive that way all the time. It's with the bridge over the train tracks closed. I go through that road, Stony Brook, all the time, and it's
We're all going
maybe
to
8 minutes away.
We'll follow you, Rob.
It's not that bad.
All right, 8:30 and 9:30.
Andrew, does that work for you?
Yeah.
Sorry.
that's,
For Fruit
9:30.
Street,
I think-
Street, it'll be 9:30.
Good.
Okay.
We'll meet you there.
Or Pratt Way.
We'll
Okay,
we'll be right at the end of the dog park waiting for
I was
you.
going to say, bring your dogs.
So did you say 8:30 and then 9:30? Is that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Okay. So I will entertain a motion to continue this hearing to April 3rd, 2023.
So moved.
Second, Rob Richter.
Sorry, I had mute on.
All right, assuming no further discussion, Mary, how do you vote?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Fran?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
I think Elise has left us. Paul?
Yes.
Matthew?
Yes.
And Gary is a yes. So thank you, Andrew, for the overview. Jay, I might email you separately because I'm curious why not 2 tennis courts, but I don't want to have the discussion now.
Can I ask one quick question? If we haven't received comments back by April 3rd, and especially not in time to respond to them, does it make, should we just ask you to continue the meeting to the next meeting after that? How does that work?
I'm not gonna lie, that as our agenda is stacked up again in our next meeting, if you think that would enable a little more, I guess to your point, particularly with the stormwater management plan review, if the extra 2 weeks enables you to get through all of that design work, the more you get through with beta, the faster the process is going to go with us.
Because I have no idea how long it will take beta to do their review, or, you know, to get comments back from your, from the town. So
John Gelsich, do you have a recommendation there? I mean, I'm based on that, I think that's a fair point, and I'm wondering, do we push this one to April 24th? I guess we already voted to continue it. I don't know if we can do that, but.
Well,
I think Beta can get it done in 2 weeks. If it's not a complicated stormwater system, I think Beta should be able to get a response to you.
if they can get us a response and they don't have major comments, I know your application requirement says that you can't vote a project on conditions. So, you know, we just would need to have time to adjust things if we need to. That's the only problem. But we can ask for continuance if we have to. So.
Okay, so let's stick with April 3rd.
Okay.
We know that time is of the essence for you guys, so we will see you on April 3rd.
Okay, thank you very much. Look forward to meeting
Appreciate you guys
on Saturday.
extending the meeting to 10:30 plus for us, which is really helpful. Thank you.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you for hanging in there.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
All right. Last item for us is minutes from February 6th, 2023. Thank you, Stephanie, for the correction there. Any comments or suggested edits? All right, then I will entertain a motion to accept the meeting minutes from February 6th, 2023.
So moved.
Second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Mary, how do you vote?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Fran?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Paul? Yes. Matthew?
Yes.
Gary is a yes as well. Thank you guys for your patience. I know this has been a particularly long day for me, so I apologize to be processing a little bit slow. But I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, assuming no further discussion, Mary, how do you vote?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Fran?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes, please.
Elise? Elise isn't here. Paul?
Yes.
Matthew?
Yes.
And Gary is a yes. Have a great night, everyone. Tomorrow is planning board pedestrian connectivity public input session. So hopefully we will see some of you there.
Thank you. See you then.
7 o'clock Zoom.
Good
Have a good
night.
night.
Hello.